Chapter 1591. Early Returnants. Breaking through from the 6th layer to the 7th layer of chaotic force really is a huge increase in strength. It's allowed me to go from the 9th heavenly layer of Saint Emperor to receival and reach early returnants. Jian Shen sighed. He silently sensed his strength and compared it to the origin realm experts he had encountered. Very soon, he determined his current strength. Undisguised joy and excitement filled his face. From the 6th layer to the 7th layer of the chaotic body, the increase in strength was so great that it had completely exceeded his expectations. At the same time, although his current strength was only equivalent to early returnants, there were very few returnants experts who were his opponent due to his chaotic body. Coupled with the azulate swords and his comprehension of the way of the sword, his battle prowess would be even greater. Other than that, he had gained a new comprehension of the powerful sword techniques that the sword spirits had taught him over the years. He had grasped a few extremely powerful sword techniques as well. With my current strength, I can kill reciprocity experts if I use my full strength. Even if I encounter late reciprocity experts, I might not be able to defeat them, but I can at least put up a fight because I have the advantage of the azulate swords and the way of the sword. However, these advantages are nowhere near as great before the Spirit King. The Spirit King also has a sword of quite a high grade, and he has also comprehended the way of the sword. His comprehension of the way of the sword is no weaker than mine, so he has the ability to challenge those at a higher level of cultivation, just like me. I wonder if the Spirit King has made any progress during the years I've been cultivating. Even if I use my full strength right now, I can only put up a fight against regular reciprocity experts, but the Spirit King is no regular expert. He possessed the battle prowess of godhood many years ago. I still can't defeat him even after reaching the 7th layer of the chaotic body. I'll probably need to break through to the 8th layer before I can match the Spirit King, Jian Shen thought. Ouyang Yangwen no longer posed any threat in his eyes. The origin realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints did not fear any threat either. The only problem was the Spirit King. The Spirit King was just too powerful. He possessed the battle prowess of a godhood expert at reciprocity. He was a peerless genius who was no weaker than Jian Shen in terms of talent. The Spirit King was Jian Shen's final opponent. If he could fend off the Spirit King, the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints would immediately vanish. If he could not stop the Spirit King, the Tianyuan continent would still be doomed. I still need to continue cultivating and try my best to reach the 8th layer of the chaotic body. Jian Shen gritted his teeth. His eyes shone with a resolute light. Then, he took a step forward and disappeared into the distance. Very soon, Jian Shen arrived before the Yinyang Saint Rock again. He immediately frowned when he saw the black and white crystal. Shangwanmu and the evil power hidden in the Yinyang Saint Rock had absorbed all the Yin and Yang Qi in the past few years, so the two rocks had shrunk drastically. There was not a lot of Yin and Yang Qi left. The energy in the Yinyang Saint Rock is not enough for me to reach the 8th layer of the chaotic body, Jian Shen thought. According to the predictions of the sword spirits, he would be able to reach the 8th layer or even the 9th layer after absorbing all the energy in the rock. However, the evil power hidden in the rock had been stealing energy from him all these years, so it was not even enough for him to reach the 8th layer in the end. It was also at this moment that a tremendous pressure appeared from afar, causing the space there to violently tremble. It seemed like it was about to shatter. As the energy in the Yinyang Saint Rock decreased, its influence on the surroundings rapidly weakened as well. Now, the world created by the rock had become more and more fragile. Jian Shen turned his head in the direction of the pressure. He could not help but faintly smile as his gaze became gentler at that moment. Shangwanmu had broken through to returnants as well, officially reaching reciprocity. Now, without Jian Shen, Shangwanmu had become the greatest expert of the 4 races without a doubt. If her battle prowess was not taken into account, and only her cultivation level was taken into account, Shangwanmu would be the greatest among the Tianyuan continent, the magical beast, the sea race, and the hunter races because she was the only reciprocity expert. Afterwards, Jianshan and Shangwan Mu continued to absorb the energy in the Yinyang Saint Rock to cultivate. After another 9 years, the energy in the rock was finally about to dry up. It was also at this moment that Jianshan and Shangwan Mu stopped absorbing energy from the rock. It had already been 18 years since Jianshan and Shangwan Mu had arrived. During that time, Jianshan's chaotic body remained at the 7th layer, about to reach the major achievement of the 7th layer. Shangwan Mu's cultivation slowed down after reaching reciprocity. In the following 9 years, she only went from early reciprocity to the peak of mid-reciprocity. She was only a step away from late reciprocity. We can't keep absorbing the remaining Yinyang Saint Rock. If the rock disappears, the evil power hidden inside will break free as well. Leaving the rock can act as a seal at the very least, trapping the evil power inside, Jianshan said sternly. Jianshan said sternly as he stood before the Yinyang Saint Rock and stared at the red light inside. In the past few years, the evil power had constantly been strengthening. It had not stopped for even a single moment. Although his and Shangwan Mu's strength had increased, Jianshan was still not completely confident that he could deal with the evil power. Even with his current strength, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart when facing this evil power. This made him feel a deep fear towards this evil power. Shangwan Mu also sternly stared at the evil power. She said, once it absorbs all the remaining energy in the rock, it'll break free as well. The remaining rock won't be able to keep it trapped for long. I know it won't be able to keep it trapped for long, but I think it's enough time. I need to reach the 8th layer of the chaotic body as soon as possible and return to the Tianyuan continent to deal with the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints. Otherwise, even if our strength has increased, we won't have any chance of victory against the attacks from the world of Forsaken Saints. And I have a feeling that the disaster this evil power will bring us will be countless times worse than the world of Forsaken Saints, Jianshan said sternly. He was extremely stern as a vicious light flickered through his eyes. Shangwan Mu looked at Jianshan and said, the energy you need to increase your chaotic body is extremely tremendous. The Yinyang Saint Rock can't absorb it right now, and you can only consume a single violet cloud peach every 100 years. What do you plan on using to break through to the 8th layer? I still have many immortal tier heavenly resources that I brought from the Xianhuang microcosm on me. Although these heavenly resources need to be refined into pills to maximize their medicinal effects. And if they are consumed directly, not only will their effects be greatly reduced, but the violent energy will also directly cause my body to explode. However, under the current circumstances, this is my only hope of breaking through to the 8th layer, Jianshan said with determination. With a wave of his hand, he took out several immortal tier heavenly resources he had obtained from the Xianhuang microcosm. Jianshan, can you endure the violent energy with the current toughness of your body? Shangwan Mu was worried. If my chaotic body remained at the 5th or 6th layer, I obviously wouldn't have the confidence, but now that I've reached the 7th layer, I believe I can endure the violent energy from these heavenly resources with the toughness of my body. Moreover, these heavenly resources aren't of particularly high grades, Jianshan said with confidence. He refused to believe that his 7th layer chaotic body would be unable to endure the violent energy from these immortal tier heavenly resources that were not of very high quality. Chapter 1592. Then you have to be careful. If your body really can't endure the violent energy, don't force yourself. Although we still can't defeat the Spirit King with our current strength, we can still keep him busy if we work together, Shangwan Mu said gently. Shangwan Mu said gently. She was concerned and slightly worried. She knew that Jianshan would be walking a dangerous path in the future. If he made a single mistake, he would end up heavily injured. In the worst-case scenario, he might even explode and die. After all, the energy within the heavenly resources was no longer gentle. Instead, it was extremely violent. It was completely different from the energy within the violet cloud peaches. Jianshan left the Yinyang Saint Rock and arrived in the desolate land several hundred kilometers away. He then took out the Inata Tower and began to cultivate. Although he was very confident in himself, he still needed to be on guard against the possibility of his body exploding from the energy within the heavenly resources. If he were outside, it would definitely affect the Yin-Yang Saint Rock. However, he believed that even if he was 10 times or 100 times more powerful, he would not be able to cause any damage to the Inata Tower, even if the Inata Tower was damaged right now. Shang Wanmu followed Jinshin into the Inata Tower. She remained by Jinshin's side, silently, while feeling rather uneasy and worried. She focused on watching over Jinshin. Jinshin picked up a king of ginseng that had been growing for who knows how many years and began to wolf it down. The king of ginseng was extremely bitter. In a single instance, Jinshin's tongue became numb as if he had lost his sense of taste. However, as the king of ginseng reached his stomach, an extremely violent energy immediately exploded in Jinshin's body like a barrel of gunpowder. It wreaked havoc wildly. Under the impact of the violent energy, Jinshin's organs shook violently and all of them ruptured. The king of ginseng was extremely old. Coupled with the fact that it had reached the immortal tier, the energy within it was so tremendous that it was comparable to a third or even fourth grade violet cloud peach. However, even in the immortals world, there were very few people who were bold enough to directly ingest the king of ginseng like Jinshin. A trickle of blood flowed from the corner of Jinshin's mouth. Although he did not explode, he was clearly injured. Jinshin did not care about his injuries at all. They were insignificant to him. As he circulated his chaotic force, his injuries immediately healed rapidly. At the same time, the violent energy from the king of ginseng was slowly assimilated by the circulation of chaotic force. In the end, it became nutrients for Jinshin's chaotic Niden. Jinshin used several days to refine the king of ginseng. A few days later, Jinshin silently sensed that his chaotic Niden had become slightly stronger. He immediately rejoiced and sighed. Without any hesitation, he picked up a second heavenly resource and ate it, continuing to increase his strength. My chaotic body has almost reached the major achievement of the 7th layer. If this continues, I'll be able to reach the 8th layer successfully before long. At that time, the gap between me and the Spirit King will shrink infinitely, or we might even reach a stalemate, thought Jinshin. He began to work even harder to refine the energy in the heavenly resources. As Jinshin consumed the heavenly resources one by one, Jinshin's chaotic Niden rapidly strengthened as well. A year later, his chaotic Niden finally reached the major achievement of the 7th layer. It was also at this moment that Jinshin felt that the increase in strength from the heavenly resources was rapidly decreasing. I've consumed too many heavenly resources. My body has developed a resistance to them, so their effects on me are rapidly decreasing. Jinshin understood the drawbacks of consuming a large number of heavenly resources in a short amount of time. At this moment, he actually began to envy the white tiger. Due to the white tiger's special bloodline, it possessed an innate advantage, so it would almost never develop a resistance to the heavenly resources. It could consume heavenly resources endlessly to increase its strength. However, if regular people consume heavenly resources as fiercely as I do, they'll suffer even greater repercussions, even if they can endure the violent energy. It might even affect their foundation and limit their future accomplishments. However, due to my chaotic body, the destruction of my foundation obviously won't happen to me, Jinshin thought. Although Jinshin had developed a resistance to the heavenly resources, he had no intentions of stopping. Instead, he consumed heavenly resources at an even greater rate. This time, he wanted to break through to the 8th layer of the chaotic body in a single stroke. Even if doing so would result in extremely bad consequences for his future cultivation, he would still do it because he was in desperate need of great strength right now. Another year later, Jinshin finally broke through to the 8th layer after consuming who knows how many heavenly resources. After reaching partial achievement of the chaotic body, each layer required a corresponding comprehension of the ways. If his comprehension was insufficient, he would not be able to break through at all. There would be an extremely great obstruction. However, Jinshin's comprehension of the way of the sword had already reached the major achievement of sword origin, so reaching the 8th layer was naturally not difficult at all. After breaking through, Jinshin could finally end the bitter days of consuming heavenly resources. This was because many of the heavenly resources tasted just too horrible, yet Jinshin had spent 2 whole years eating them. It was basically a form of torture. If it were not for Jinshin's thirst for strength and a strong will, he probably would have given up long ago. Now, Jinshin could not help but feel like vomiting whenever he smelled the heavenly resources. He would not dare to eat them for a very long time in the future. I've finally broken through. Jinshin stood up from the ground. He glanced at his robes, which had been dyed red by blood due to his shattered core. He decisively took out a new set of robes from his space ring and changed into them. His entire bearing suddenly changed as well. At that moment, Jinshin felt an extremely great power from his body. The power was so great that it was enough to make the world tremble and the stars dim. He felt like he could collapse space with just a casual clench of his hand. Space seemed to be extremely fragile before him. Jinshin, have you broken through to the 8th layer? Shangwanmu-er's voice rang out from beside him. There was some joy in her voice. She knew that once Jinshin reached the 8th layer, he would truly possess the power to fend off the Spirit King. Jinshin looked at Shangwanmu-er. During the past 2 years, his cultivation had not been boring at all because Shangwanmu-er had always been by his side. She would play her zither from time to time and silently encourage him. I've reached the 8th layer as I wished. It's just that I've consumed far too many heavenly resources, so I've left behind some problems in my body. Fortunately, these problems don't pose much of a threat to my chaotic body. I'll be able to get rid of them after some time. Jinshin smiled faintly. He did not care about the problems in his body at all. These problems were fatal to other people, but to him, all he needed to do was spend some time cultivating, and he could resolve them perfectly. Chapter 1593. Jinshin's eyes narrowed when he heard about the Tianyuan continent. He could not help but think of the familiar faces of Bai Yun Tian, Changyang Ba, Yu Huangwan Bai Lian, and so on. He and Shangwanmu had remained in the space created by the Inyang Saint Rock for who knows how long. During that time, they had no idea about the situation on the Tianyuan continent, so they immediately began to worry when they heard about the Tianyuan continent. Shangwanmu worried about the Tianyuan continent, but so did Jinshin. Moreover, Jinshin worried about the Tianyuan continent even more than Shangwanmu. Not only were his parents on the Tianyuan continent, but he also had many close friends and brothers who were as close as brothers. Then let's go back quickly. Jinshin clearly became even more worried than Shangwanmu when he thought about the Tianyuan continent. The two of them immediately left the Inata Tower and returned to the Tianyuan continent with the assistance of the Sword Spirits. Jinshin did not pay any attention to the Inyang Saint Rock that had almost run out of energy. All that was left of the rock was a thin shell. It had basically formed a cage, trapping the evil power inside. Although the evil power constantly absorbed the rock and could still break free when it ran out of energy, it would give Jinshin more time to deal with the world of Forsaken Saints while it was sealed. Otherwise, if the evil power ran out and caused trouble while the Tianyuan continent was under attack from the world of Forsaken Saints, the consequences would be unthinkable. The Supreme Divine Hall at the entrance of the tunnel to the world of Forsaken Saints constantly trembled. With each tremble, a deafening boom would ring out from the tunnel below. The sound was powerful enough to shatter rock. As the sound waves permeated the surroundings, the rivers 100 kilometers away began to churn. They became turbulent, and huge waves rose several hundred meters into the air. It was a shocking sight. Not only did the sound waves from the bottom of the Divine Hall reach the 4 rivers, but they also reached the depths of the 4 shattered continents. They covered a small portion of the Tianyuan continent. The thick clouds in the sky were forcefully dispersed by the sound waves. The Divine Hall suffered an extremely violent attack, one that had already lasted for several years. It had never stopped. Originally, The sainthood experts of the Tian Yuan continent would stand guard in the Divine Hall for 10 days. But now, the Divine Hall's energy consumption had reached an unprecedented level as the attacks became more and more intense. All the sainthood experts of the four races had gathered in the Divine Hall now. There were even many Heaven Saint Masters among the sainthood experts. There were so many Heaven Saint Masters that they outnumbered the sainthood experts by more than 10 times. Originally, the Divine Hall, there were so many saint experts, but now that so many saint masters had appeared, the Tian Yuan continent's right. The Tian Yuan continent's current situation was just a matter of forsaken saints were tell them how dangerous the continent was currently. Boom! At this moment, another great sound rang out from the bottom of the Divine Hall. It reverberated through the surroundings, causing the Divine Hall to tremble even more violently. It had almost been blown away by the powerful shockwave of energy. All the Heaven Saint Masters in the Divine Hall grunted. Their faces became extremely pale in a single moment as they began to tremble violently. Half of them directly fainted on the ground. The expressions of the saint rulers, the Holy Emperor, and the Holy Emperor all changed as well. They gently trembled. Every time the Divine Hall endured a powerful attack, it would absorb a large amount of energy from them. Moreover, the Divine Hall had endured an extremely violent attack in the past few years, so their recovery rate could not keep up with the consumption rate. Now, all the sainted experts were close to running out of energy. Quite a few saint rulers had even collapsed. Although they were still alive, they did not have any energy left. At this moment, despair appeared in the eyes of many people. They no longer held any hope for this world. If it were not for the fact that there were still a few Origin Realm experts in the Divine Hall, and if it were not for the fact that the Divine Hall was not a place where they could come and go as they pleased, many people would have chosen to leave already instead of making a pointless final struggle. At this moment, the Origin Realm experts of the four races all sat around the white jade seat in exhaustion. Their faces were pale, and all of them were extremely stern. We can't last much longer. We've run out of mortal energy fruits. Once we run out of origin energy, we won't be able to recover anymore. We'll be lost in a few hours at most. We no longer have any hope of turning the situation around, Guihai Dao said with a heavy voice. His pale face was filled with helplessness and deep exhaustion. Two people from a world of forsaken saints have actually reached reciprocity. The two of them are attacking the Divine Hall with 5 Returnance experts at the same time, which has increased the consumption rate of the Divine Hall. Otherwise, we would have been able to last a little longer, Feng Xiaotian sighed. In just 20 short years, the world of Forsaken Saints had gained 2 reciprocity experts. This was something they had never expected. It was also because of the 2 reciprocity experts that the time they could guard the Divine Hall had been shortened. There are only 2 paths of survival before us right now. The first is to use the Divine Hall to take some people out of this world and into the Saints' world. The second is to take the Divine Hall and hide in the depths of outer space. Right now, the laws of this world are constantly being perfected. The origin energy that has vanished for many years is slowly beginning to reappear. As long as we have enough time, we can grow to a level where we can match the world of Forsaken Saints, Yang Lai said with a heavy voice. But Big Brother still hasn't returned. If Big Brother suddenly returns after we leave, he'll be hunted down by many bad people. I don't want to go. I want to stay here and wait for Big Brother to return. Xiaoling was the first to object to Yang Lai's plan of retreat. He insisted on staying while sobbing. My great-grandson has already been gone for 20 years. I don't know where he is right now or when he'll return, but we really don't have time. We've run out of mortal energy fruits, so we can only last a few hours at most. If we don't leave now, we'll probably all die here, Yang Lai sighed gently. He was filled with helplessness. They were already not the world of Forsaken Saints' opponent when they did not have any reciprocity experts, let alone now that the world of Forsaken Saints had suddenly gained 2 reciprocity experts. How were they supposed to deal with them? We should retreat while we still have some strength left. The world of Forsaken Saints is unstoppable, so there's no point in staying any longer. Once we have enough strength in the future, we'll kill our way back, Houston said as well. I have no objections, Taita agreed. He agreed to retreat as well. Under the current circumstances, only death awaited them if they insisted on staying. Only by staying alive would they have a chance in the future. But big brother, what do we do? Xiaoling sobbed. He was extremely sorrowful. Poseidon sighed. I understand Jianshan. When he left the Tian Yuan continent without any hesitation, I sensed great confidence from him. He's basically at the end of the road, yet Jianshan is still confident. I think he definitely has a way to deal with the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints. He hasn't contacted us in the past few years. Maybe he's hiding in some unknown place to increase his strength. Once he's powerful enough, he'll definitely return, but we don't have the time to wait. It's best if we hide in the depths of outer space and kill our way back when Jianshan returns. Many people from the four races could be heard discussing Jianshan outside the Divine Hall. Where's the greatest human expert, Sovereign Jianshan? We can't last much longer. Why hasn't Sovereign Jianshan returned yet? Has he fled alone because he knows there's no hope for this world? Chapter 1594. Who says Sovereign Jianshan is powerless here? Sovereign Jianshan's potential is so great that his talent surpasses everyone in the history of the Sea Realm, magical beasts, and 100 races, let alone our continent's history. Sovereign Jianshan only used a few decades to go from a puny saint to an Origin Realm expert. Now that 20 years have passed, I believe Sovereign Jianshan's strength will be countless times greater than before. That's right. I agree with that as well. Sovereign Jianshan's cultivation speed is far greater than what we can imagine, so we can't view Sovereign Jianshan as a normal person. Sovereign Jianshan has vanished for 20 years. He must be increasing his strength somewhere or finding a way to deal with the problems of the world of Forsaken Saints. I believe that Sovereign Jianshan will no longer fear the Spirit King when he returns. Right now, Sovereign Jianshan is our only hope. Not only are so many of us waiting for Sovereign Jianshan's return, but even the other sovereigns are waiting for Sovereign Jianshan's return. There's one more thing. Soon after Sovereign Jianshan left, the world began to change. The laws gradually recovered, and cultivation became easier than before. Now, strands of origin energy that had vanished for many years have appeared. Do you think Sovereign Jianshan is the cause of these changes? Gradually, more and more people joined in. Not only were there humans, but there were also people from the Sea Realm, magical beasts, and 100 races. Even in a time like this, there were still many people from the four races who held great confidence in Jianshan. They wholeheartedly protected Jianshan. However, not everyone stood on Jianshan's side. There was still a portion of people who had completely lost confidence in Jianshan. Many people believe that Jianshan had fled in the past 20 years. In old man's eyes, you've all been blinded by your worship of Jianshan. You've lost your rationality long ago. Why don't you think about just how powerful the Spirit King is? He's a supreme expert, no weaker than godhood. Sovereign Jianshan's talent is decent, and his potential is great. His rate of cultivation is indeed astonishing, but his age is there. Even if Sovereign Jianshan is a supreme genius, it's impossible for him to increase his strength to the point where he can fight against godhood experts in just 20 short years. Don't forget that when Sovereign Jianshan left 20 years ago, it was extremely difficult for him to deal with late returnance experts. The person who spoke was a skinny old man with a hooked nose. Even though he was pale, his gaze towards the cultivators who admired Jianshan was filled with undisguised disdain and mockery. The old man's strength was not to be underestimated either. Even among the Holy Emperor, he was one of the experts. He had reached the 6th heavenly layer and was a renowned expert among the magical beasts. That's right. It's impossible for Sovereign Jianshan to reach the same level as the Spirit King in just 20 short years. As for why there hasn't been any news of him in the past 20 years, it might be because Jianshan is already in the Saints' world. As for whether the change of the world is related to Sovereign Jianshan, I won't express my personal opinion. I just want to ask, is there anyone here who believes that the world has changed because of Sovereign Jianshan? A middle-aged man chuckled. His face was filled with mockery. Although the middle-aged man was not as powerful as the old man, he was still a holy emperor, as well as a human holy emperor. As soon as the holy emperor finished speaking, cries of disbelief immediately rang out in the surroundings. In the eyes of many people, Jianshan was indeed very powerful. He was the greatest human expert without a doubt, but it was impossible for him to change the laws of the world. You're all heartless. Don't forget who allowed you to become Saint Emperors. You're actually slandering my brother for no reason while he's not here. My brother would never abandon us and flee by himself, Jianshan sneered. At this moment, a furious voice rang out. Bai Lian angrily flew over from afar with a group of people. Yu Yu, Huang Wan, Xiao Tianyu, Dugu Feng, and so on were among them. There were several dozen people, including many holy emperors. The golden-robed newbies was with them as well. At this moment, newbies coldly stared at the people who did not respect his brother. He revealed a cruel smile. It's all because of my brother Jianshan that you can become holy emperor. It's fine if you don't feel grateful, but now you're slandering him. If my brother doesn't come back, then so be it. If he comes back, then I, the great newbies, will have no choice but to take back the power my brother bestowed upon you. The magical beast old man, who was at the 7th heavenly layer of the holy emperor, stepped forward. He looked at newbies calmly and said, Newbies, aren't you a little too arrogant? You're only at the 6th heavenly layer of the holy emperor. There are quite a few people who can suppress you here. Moreover, what that fellow said before was completely unreasonable. The greatest human expert Jianshan has vanished for 20 whole years, and this world is only so big. Several holy emperors can search every corner of the world with their secret techniques. Yet there's no news of Jianshan at all. Apart from leaving this world for the saint's world, where else could he? However, before the magical beast old man could finish speaking, a small, white hand pressed against his head silently. With a bang, the magical beast old man's head exploded loudly. His soul did not even manage to escape before his soul was wiped out. This scene caused everyone's hearts to tremble. In an instant, the entire place became deathly silent. A young boy who appeared to be only 8 or 9 years old silently appeared in front of the old orc. He wore a cold expression that was completely unbefitting of his age, and he was coldly sweeping his gaze over everyone present, full of warning. It's the winged tiger. Many people from 4 races shivered when they saw the boy. They became extremely fearful. Although the winged tiger god did not seem very old and did not speak much, he was not careless when he took action. As a matter of fact, there were even times when the winged tiger god would kill so decisively that many of the older generation would sigh at their inferiority. At this moment, the little white tiger's gaze landed on the group of beasts. It said expressionlessly, I don't care if the other 3 clans slander my brother. However, if anyone from the beast clan dares to slander my brother, I will show no mercy. All the magical beasts became as cold as cicadas in winter when they heard that. In particular, the people who had taken part in slandering Jianshan before were completely frightened out of their wits. This winged tiger's killing intent is so powerful. A 7th heavenly layer holy emperor was slain by him without any hesitation. Even with the 4 races in perspective, there aren't a lot of experts like him. He'll be of great use now. Sigh, this winged tiger is just too rash. Many people from the other 3 races secretly sighed inside, but they did not dare to say that out loud. At this moment, Ouyang Yangwan and Xiong Zhong stood at the front of the tunnel that connected the world of Forsaken Saints and the Tian Yuan continent, with 5 receival experts behind them. They were all rather excited. I can sense that the power of the Divine Hall is rapidly declining. After so many years, we've finally exhausted their power. We'll be able to reach the other world very soon. Jianshan, I will definitely kill you this time to vent my anger. Ouyang Yangwen sneered as he stood in the tunnel. He was filled with killing intent. Jianshan is mine. I was defeated by him last time and fled. That was the greatest humiliation of my life. This time, I will personally rip Jianshan to shreds and wipe away that humiliation, Xiong Zhong said as well. He was rather humiliated. Ouyang Yangwen's face sank slightly. He glanced at Xiongzhong, and a cold light flickered through his eyes. He said, Xiongzhong, I can give Jinshin to you since you've helped me once, but the two swords in Jinshin's hands belong to me. No, Xiongzhong flatly declined. He knew that Jinshin's two swords were very powerful. He just happened to be on par with Ouyang Yangwen, so if Ouyang Yangwen obtained the two swords, he would definitely not be Ouyang Yangwen's opponent. Ouyang Yangwen's eyes immediately turned cold. He said, if that's the case, we'll fight over them with our own strength. All right, we'll fight over them with our own strength. Xiongzhong agreed without any hesitation. He showed no fear at all before glancing at the returnants' elders behind him. He called out, if we continue like before, we'll probably need a few more hours to exhaust the power of the Divine Hall. Let's get into the 7 kills formation and combine our powers. We'll try to tear the Divine Hall apart in a single strike. Whatever. I don't want to waste a few more hours. The 7 kills formation may consume a lot of power, but it's worth it even if it costs a little more origin energy if we can get the two swords as soon as possible. Get into formation. Ouyang Yangwen hesitated slightly before agreeing to Xiongzhong's plan. Afterward, the 7 of them immediately began to fall into a formation, fusing their powers together and erupting with a power that far exceeded early reciprocity. They struck the Divine Hall viciously. The attack was so powerful that it surpassed any attack the Divine Hall had endured in the past 20 years. It was only weaker than the attack from the Spirit King, because the attack this time had been unleashed from the combined power of 5 receival experts and 2 reciprocity experts through a formation. Boom! Chapter 1595. The Supreme Divine Hall above the tunnel was knocked high into the air by the combined attacks of Ouyang Yangwen, Xiongzhong, and 5 other elders. The entrance to the tunnel that had been sealed for 20 years was revealed at that moment. The deafening booms continued to reverberate through the Divine Hall. The entire Divine Hall shook violently as a terrifying force rose up from below. Everyone in the Divine Hall could clearly sense that the Divine Hall had been lifted into the air by the experts from the world of Forsaken Saints. At that moment, many people's faces paled. Many people's minds went blank, and they fell into despair. Without the protection of the Supreme Divine Hall, they would not just have to face a few Origin Realm experts. They would face several dozen Origin Realm experts and countless Saint Emperors from the world of Forsaken Saints. They had no chance of victory when the disparity in strength was so great. Let's go out and fight. Even if we die, we'll die in our homeland. Let's go and fight it out with the people from the world of Forsaken Saints. It's just death, so what's there to be afraid of? Who hasn't died since ancient times? To us, it's just a few thousand years less. We'll still be reduced to dust in the future. That's right. What's there to be afraid of? Even if we don't die now, we'll pass away in the future due to the end of our lifespan. We're just leaving a little earlier today. There's nothing to be afraid of. A bold voice rang out from within the Divine Hall. It was filled with carefreeness, without any fear of death at all. As such voices rang out, the pressure that permeated the Divine Hall gradually dispersed. Many people were affected. Gradually, the entire Divine Hall was shrouded in a torrential will to fight. Even though some people were afraid, and some were fearful, there were also quite a few cultivators who did not fear death. At that moment, many people from the 4 races had already made up their minds to fight to the death. Even though they knew it would be like moths to a flame, they still would not back down. Ha ha ha, Jinshin, get the hell out here. I'd like to see how you're going to defeat me this time. Jinshin, Ouyang Yangwen, will return the humiliation from 20 years ago with interest today. That is the greatest humiliation of my life. Not only will I kill you, but I'll also kill everyone related to you. Only then can I wash away my humiliation. Ouyang Yangwen's voice was filled with killing intent. 2 thunderous voices rang out from the tunnel. The terrifying sound waves turned into visible sound waves, sweeping out in all directions with devastating force. It made the river water boil and the ground on both sides shake. Even the vegetation tens of thousands of kilometers away was pulverized by the terrifying sound waves. If it wasn't for the fact that the people nearby had been evacuated, just this terrifying sound wave alone would have been enough to injure and kill countless people. These were the voices of two reciprocity experts. The sound waves were so powerful that even saint rulers would be injured. Weaker cultivators would even be directly shaken out of their wits. Two figures gradually appeared at the entrance of the tunnel. They became clearer and clearer as they steadily approached the Tianyuan continent with a terrifying pressure that caused the surroundings to tremble. They were Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen. After 20 years, the two of them had both reached reciprocity. Their great strength gave them great confidence. In their eyes, there was no one on the Tianyuan continent who had the right to be their opponent, not even Jianshan. They had come to find Jianshan first because they wanted to regain the dignity they had lost 20 years ago and because they wanted Jianshan's azulate swords. At the same time, countless cultivators charged out of the supreme divine hall with determination. They surged with battle intent as they fearlessly charged toward the tunnel. Not only were there heaven saint masters among them, but there were also saint rulers, holy emperors, and holy emperors. You're just a bunch of ants, yet you still want to put up a pointless struggle, Ouyang Yangwen sneered. Ouyang Yangwen sneered. He directly formed a sword with his right hand and pointed at the sky. Immediately, a huge strand of sword chi that was several dozen meters long surged into the sky. It shot towards the cultivators in the world with terrifying pulses of energy that made the world tremble. Mysteries of war, heaven-tearing axes. At the same time, a dazzling, golden light erupted from the crowd. It seemed like a miniature sun, erupting with dazzling light that illuminated the surroundings. Tai Ta charged out of the crowd with his axe in hand, radiating with a towering aura. His extremely powerful battle intent fused with the golden axe in his hand. He swung out with the axe, colliding with Ouyang Yangwen's sword chi with terrifying might. With a great rumble, their clash caused the world to suddenly darken. A huge black hole with a diameter of over 10,000 meters appeared in the sky, devouring all the light in the surroundings. It caused the world to darken. The entire region of space shook violently from Tai Ta and Ouyang Yangwen's clash. At the same time, the powerful ripples of energy reached the ground, causing a great earthquake to erupt on the Tianyuan continent that was split into four. The ground shook, and a bottomless chasm several thousand kilometers wide appeared in the surroundings of the tunnel. Tai Ta's face changed after the strike. He could not help but stagger a few steps back. On the other hand, Ouyang Yangwen remained where he was. When the terrifying ripples of energy approached him, they were split in half by an invisible force flowing past his sides. So powerful. Origin energy really is powerful, thought Tai Ta. Tai Ta thought. His face had become unprecedentedly stern. He had basically used his full strength in the previous strike, while Ouyang Yangwen had not even used his sword. He had only sent out a strand of sword chi with his finger, yet it was no weaker than his. It might even be slightly stronger. When Tai Ta emerged from Erjin's tomb, he was only strong enough to fight against Ouyang Yangwen from 20 years ago. In the 17 years that followed, he remained in the Divine Hall. Not only did his strength not increase at all, but he had also expended a lot of energy. He was obviously not Ouyang Yangwen's opponent now that he had reached reciprocity. You're quite strong. You were no weaker than me 20 years ago, but now, killing you is as easy as flipping my hand, Ouyang Yangwen said coldly. Ouyang Yangwen said coldly. He looked at Tai Ta as if he was looking at a dead man. Immediately after, a sword appeared in his hand. His entire presence changed at that moment, and he fused with his sword. His entire body turned into a streak of dazzling light as he charged at Tai Ta. He seemed to have become a streak of light, moving at an unbelievable speed. Houston, Poseidon, Xiao Jin, Xiao Ling, Wing Tiger, Feng Xiaotian, Yang Lai, and Guihai Yidao appeared before Tai Ta at the same time. All of them struck out together to deal with Ouyang Yangwen. However, Ouyang Yangwen's strength had exceeded everyone's imaginations after using a sword. Even with all the Origin Realm experts working together, they were still not Ouyang Yangwen's opponent. When Ouyang Yangwen's sword collided with them, Houston and the other Origin Realm experts all vomited blood and were blown away. Xiao Jin, Feng Xiaodian, Yang Lai, and Guihai Yidao all suffered vicious slashes. Everyone was astounded by this scene. Ouyang Yangwen was just too powerful. Even when 9 Origin Realm experts worked together, they were not able to withstand a single strike from him. Where's Jianxin? Why don't I see him? Where has he gone to hide? Ouyang Yangwen glanced past the Origin Realm experts from the Tian Yuan continent and immediately frowned. However, a sinister smile soon appeared on his face. He said, "Since Jianxin isn't here, I'll kill all of you first and then go find him." Heavy killing intent filled Ouyang Yangwen's eyes. He suddenly stabbed out with his sword, and it shone with resplendent light. He mercilessly swung it toward the Origin Realm experts with devastating might. However, when Ouyang Yangwen stabbed out with his sword, the space before the Origin Realm experts suddenly split open without any prior signs. A hand extended from within. The fingers were long and slender, and the index and middle fingers formed a sword in a single moment. With a flash of blinding light, a strand of sword chi shot out, receiving Ouyang Yangwen's attack with a speed several times faster than his sword. The sword chi was not large, only a meter long. Both its size and presence paled in comparison to Ouyang Yangwen's attack. Chapter 1596. Ouyang Yangwen felt chills run down his spine as he faced the sword chi that was incomparable to his strike, both in size and presence. He sensed an unprecedented threat from the sword chi as it surged towards him with the presence of death. Ouyang Yangwen felt his hands and feet become extremely cold at that moment after being locked onto by the meter-long sword chi. He could not help but feel a coldness fill his entire body. Ouyang Yangwen's heart suddenly sank. He immediately wanted to withdraw his attack and dodge, but the meter-long sword chi was just too fast. It was already too late for him to dodge. The sword chi collided with Ouyang Yangwen's sword in a single moment. Ding! With the sound of metal clashing, the powerful light from Ouyang Yangwen's sword immediately collapsed before the sword chi. However, the sword chi did not slow down at all, colliding with Ouyang Yangwen's sword with an unstoppable force. The sword chi erupted with a resplendent light, but it was actually knocked aside by the sword chi. Afterwards, a powerful force came from the collision. The force was extremely powerful. It traveled from his sword to Ouyang Yangwen's right arm, causing him to violently tremble. The sleeve of his right arm was reduced to dust at that moment, revealing his thin right arm. However, his right arm was now covered in blood. The blood had all been squeezed out from his pores. Ouyang Yangwen was extremely shocked, especially when he felt the intense pain from his right arm. He was filled with disbelief. He had already reached reciprocity, let alone the Tian Yuan continent, where origin energy was lacking. He was a peak expert even in the world of Forsaken Saints. However, he had actually been injured by a mere strand of sword chi, and a strand of sword chi did not come from a powerful treasure. Instead, it came from 2 fingers. Who is this? How can there be such a powerful expert in this world? Ouyang Yangwen roared inside. His heart began to beat violently, uncontrollably. His face became extremely stern at that moment. He was no longer as composed and arrogant as before. However, at this moment, Ouyang Yangwen's eyes suddenly narrowed. He became even more shocked because he discovered that the sword chi did not disperse after shattering his light and clashing with his sword. Instead, it continued toward him as a white streak of light. It moved just too quickly, as if it had pierced through space, ignoring time and space. It arrived in an instant. Even with Ouyang Yangwen's strength at early reciprocity, he could only react to the sword chi's speed with his mind. He was unable to move his body. All he could do was watch the sword chi approach him. Spurt! The sword chi pierced Ouyang Yangwen's chest and continued toward the tunnel behind him. It caused the tunnel to rumble as it violently shook. Bang! It was also at this moment that Ouyang Yangwen's entire chest exploded. At this time, the space where the hand was began to expand rapidly. Under the nervous and expectant gazes of everyone, it quickly condensed into a space door. A young man in a white robe with 2 swords on his back walked out. Beside him stood a woman in a purple dress with a guqin in her arms. She was a peerless beauty. To no surprise, the 2 of them were Jianshan and Shangwanmu. It's Sovereign Jianshan. Sovereign Jianshan has returned. As Jianshan and Shangwanmu appeared before everyone, all the people on the side of the Tian Yuan continent cried out. Their faces were filled with excitement and joy, as if they had just escaped from death. Jianshan, how is it possible for it to be you? On the other side, Xiongzhong cried out as his eyes widened. He refused to believe that the mysterious expert who had heavily injured Ouyang Yangwen in a single strike was Jianshan. This was because Jianshan was still slightly weaker than him 20 years ago. In the end, he had only managed to defeat him by a hair's breadth because of his great endurance and recovery. However, 20 years later, he had broken through to reciprocity. Jianshan's world did not possess origin energy, so logically speaking, he should not have made any progress at all. How had he suddenly become so powerful? Ouyang Yangwen took out a pill from his space ring and swallowed it painfully. His wounds immediately healed up, and even new flesh grew out of the wound on his chest. He also stared at Jianshan in shock. He had come here to avenge himself. After reaching reciprocity, he did not take Jianshan seriously at all. However, he had never thought that reality would be so cruel. He had actually been heavily injured in a single strike by someone he had never taken seriously. He was unable to accept this reality. P.S. The Sword God's ranking on the index is not bad, but the sales are not ideal. It's extremely bad. This is due to many people reading pirated copies. Xiaoyao hopes that more people will support the original version. Only by reading the original version can they support the author. The original version is not expensive either. It's less than 10 cents per chapter, so it's less than $3 per month. If you really like the Sword God, if you really are willing to support Xiaoyao's writing, please spend 10 cents per day on the books you like. Chapter 1597. Impossible, impossible. This is definitely impossible. 20 years ago, you were not even as strong as me, barely at late returnance. It's impossible for you to become so powerful in just 20 short years, Jianshan said with a frown. Ouyang Yangwen stared fixedly at Jianshan. Uncontainable shock and astonishment filled his eyes. Were you hiding your strength in the past? Ouyang Yangwen asked again. He became extremely stern. He refused to believe that someone could increase their strength so drastically in just 20 short years in an environment without origin energy. This rate of increase was just too shocking. Even the greatest genius in the history of their world of Forsaken Saints, the Spirit King, would not be able to cultivate so quickly. Sob, 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 Big Brother, you finally returned. Shaoling knew that Big Brother would definitely return. Many of them said that Big Brother had abandoned us and fled to the Saints' world. Shaoling arrived beside Jianshan as she sobbed. She hugged Jianshan's arm tightly as she sobbed. The expressions of all the people who had said that Jianshan had abandoned them and fled to the Saints' world changed when they heard Shaoling's words. They were filled with regret and uneasiness. They were afraid that Sovereign Jianshan would really pursue the matter. After all, what they had said before was an act of great treason. They had slandered a sovereign who had once helped them. Jianshan looked at Shaoling gently. His eyes were filled with uncontainable love. He said, Shaoling, Big Brother will never abandon you. It's been hard on you all these years. Leave the rest to me. Shaoling nodded firmly. She stared at Ouyang Yangwen furiously and said angrily, Big Brother, that bad guy is so wretched. He injured Brother Xiao, Jean, and all of us, and he even wanted to kill us. You have to teach him a lesson for us. Jianshan rubbed Shaoling's head and said gently, Don't worry, Shaoling. I definitely won't let Ouyang Yangwen go. I'll teach him a lesson right now. With that, Jianshan slowly raised his head as well. He stared at Ouyang Yangwen coldly as cold, killing intent radiated from him without any attempt to hide it. After ingesting an extremely precious healing pill, Ouyang Yangwen's wounds had mostly healed. The flesh on his chest had regenerated. The moment Jinshin looked over, Ouyang Yangwen's heart immediately tightened. He said with a deep voice, "In just 20 years, it's impossible for his strength to increase to a level where we can't resist him. The power he used earlier definitely doesn't belong to him. Although I don't know where he obtained it from, it definitely won't last for long. It'll be gone once it's used up. Let's get into formation and use the 7 kills formation against him. However, the power definitely doesn't belong to him. Let's use the 7 kills formation to combine our powers and waste away the power that doesn't belong to him." Xiongzhong agreed with Ouyang Yangwen. He did not believe that Jinshin could really increase his strength to such a level in such a short amount of time, because it was just too unbelievable. Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen worked together once again. They formed the 7 kills formation with the 5 returnants elders behind them. Although Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen were mortal enemies, Jinshin's strength made them all shiver in fear. Under these circumstances, the two of them cast aside their personal grievances without any hesitation and worked together. With the formation, the 7 returnants and reciprocity experts from the world of Forsaken Saints immediately fused their powers together. They erupted with a surging might. Just the presence alone was enough to cause space to collapse and the ground to sink. At that moment, the entire world seemed to tremble in fear. The presence was just too powerful. It had completely exceeded early reciprocity and reached mid-reciprocity. It had completely exceeded the limits of what the world could endure. 7 powers as one, condensed the 7 kills sword. The 7 Origin Realm experts called out together. They were all extremely stern. At that moment, Origin energy surged out from their bodies without holding back at all. Through the formation, a 30-meter-long blood-red sword chi condensed above their heads. It shone with a demonic red light and gave off shocking pulses of energy. It directly ripped through space, causing huge cracks to appear in the surroundings. At that moment, the entire world darkened. The sun lost its color and the stars no longer flickered. The entire sky was filled with cracks in space. It was a shocking and terrifying sight. All the Origin Realm experts on the Tian Yuan continent became extremely stern. They could clearly sense just how terrifying the power within the blood-red sword chi was. It was truly devastating, and if the energy within it erupted, the entire Tian Yuan continent would be reduced to nothing. "Mu-er, you're responsible for protecting the Tian Yuan continent," Jinshan said with a deep voice. Jinshan growled. His gaze was extremely cold as his killing intent toward Ouyang Yangwen and the others became even more intense. The Tian Yuan continent was so fragile. Even a battle between the Holy Emperor and the Holy Emperor was enough to heavily injure the continent, let alone when the 7 Origin Realm experts worked together. If the power of the attack erupted here, it would definitely be the end of the world for the Tian Yuan continent. Shangguan Mu also understood the severity of the situation. Without any hesitation, she immediately sat down in the air as her slender fingers rapidly strummed the zither. She did not want to use her zither to control the souls of the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints. Her strength had increased drastically, reaching mid-reciprocity, but the people before her were not weak either. There were 5 returnants experts and 2 reciprocity experts. It was not impossible for her to control the souls of 7 Origin Realm experts, but it was impossible for her to do so in a single moment. She needed time to charge up, and she clearly did not have enough time right now. As a result, she used another method. As she strummed the zither, huge spatial ripples appeared in the air. Every single ripple was several dozen meters thick and endless in length. From afar, they seemed like the strings of a zither that had been enlarged countless times. These spatial ripples, which were like zither strings, quickly spread into the distance. Finally, they formed a huge circle, enveloping the space within a radius of 10,000 miles. It was as if it had formed a prison, encircling the land within 10,000 miles. It was as if this place had become 2 different worlds. At the same time, the 7 Origin Realm experts used the 7 kills formation. The blood-red sword Qi condensed from their power shot toward Jinshan with lightning-like speed. It surged with devastating power. A terrifying pressure permeated the surroundings, causing many sainthood experts on the side of the Tianyuan continent to vomit blood. Even the Holy Emperor struggled to protect himself under the pressure. Chapter 1598. The demonic blood-red sword Qi had been created by Ouyang Yangwan and the other Origin Realm experts through a formation. It possessed boundless power and could easily destroy the world, but when the sword Qi condensed from Jinshan's finger stabbed into it, the sword Qi began to rapidly melt away from the inside. In the blink of an eye, the sword Qi that seemed extremely solid before began to show signs of dispersing. Boom! In the next moment, with a boom, the blood-red sword Qi immediately exploded, radiating with intense red light. Terrifying energy ripples formed strands of sharp sword Qi that shot out in all directions. They were densely packed, covering the entire sky. Jinshan swung his right hand, and a huge strand of sword Qi suddenly condensed. He directly swept it through the space before him. The attack seemed nothing special, and it did not erupt with particularly powerful pulses of energy, but it was unstoppable. Wherever the sword Qi passed by, all the energy and scattered sword Qi would be dispersed, preventing the energy from harming the people behind him. At the same time, the Origin Realm experts from the Tianyuan continent worked together to create an energy barrier. They blocked the remaining ripples of energy so that the cultivators from the Tianyuan continent would not be affected. Jinshan could only protect a small area from the shockwaves. He was unable to stop all the energy from the explosion of the sword Qi. In the other three directions, the terrifying shockwaves and strands of sword Qi wreaked havoc on the Tianyuan continent. It spread out into the distance at an extremely fast speed. Wherever it passed, the void trembled and shattered, and large cracks began to appear. The Tianyuan continent below collapsed in a single moment. A bottomless chasm appeared as the entire continent shook violently. Only when the shockwaves reached 10,000 kilometers away did Shangwan Mu Er's barrier stop them. However, the continent had completely vanished in that region. A bottomless chasm had appeared. Ouyang Yangwan and the other Origin Realm experts all paled. They all grunted as they staggered backwards. The 5 Returnants elders could not help but vomit blood as shock filled their faces. This is impossible. Ouyang Yangwan and Xiong Zhong both stared at Jinshan in a daze. Disbelief filled their faces. They could clearly sense the power of laws that belonged to the way of the sword from this clash. The power was nowhere near what it had been 20 years ago. It was no weaker than the Spirit King. Whether it's Jinshan's strength or comprehension of the way of the sword, they've both increased by a lot compared to 20 years ago. Is this his true strength? He's not relying on external help? Xiong Zhong stuttered. He felt like he was about to suffocate when he reached this conclusion. Jinshan's strength had actually become so great. It was just too terrifying. In particular, when he saw how composed Jinshan was, he found it even more difficult to connect him to the battle from 20 years ago when he barely managed to do so. Let's retreat. Ouyang Yangwan immediately made up his mind and gave the order to retreat without any hesitation. Jinshan had blocked the 7 kills formation that the 7 of them had cast together. So how were they supposed to fight against Jinshan? Let's go. Let's return to the world of Forsaken Saints. Xiong Zhong gave the order at the same time. Immediately, he and Ouyang Yangwan returned to the tunnel in horrible shape with the 5 Returnants elders. They returned to the world of Forsaken Saints as quickly as possible. Big brother, don't let them go. They're bad people. They'll start all over again once they return. Xiaoling frantically said from behind. She had already become extremely resentful of Ouyang Yangwan. Not only had Ouyang Yangwan injured all the Origin Realm experts on the Tianyuan continent, but he had also heavily injured her brother, Xiaojin. Jinshan coldly watched them leave. He did not pursue them. When he heard Xiaoling's frantic words, he gently shook his head and said, "Don't worry, Xiaoling. I'll avenge you, but the battlefield can't be on our Tianyuan continent. or the Tian Yuan continent will be destroyed even if I kill them. Brother, you finally returned. I thought I wouldn't be able to see you again. A sobbing and joyful voice rang out from the crowd. Bai Yin charged out of the crowd and arrived beside Jianshan as quickly as she could. She was filled with the joy and excitement of surviving a disaster. Afterward, Yu, Huang Wan, newbies, Xiu Tianyu, Qin Xiao, and so on, all the people Jianshan was familiar with emerged from the crowd as well. They were all excited as they smiled at Jianshan. To no surprise, Shangwan Aojian, Xiao Qian, and Xiao Yu were among them. Yu glanced at Shangwan Mu, from time to time. The light in her eyes flickered with mixed feelings before she gently sighed inside. At that moment, no one could understand what she was feeling. Aside from joy and joy, she also felt bitterness. Jianshan comforted by Lien before slowly glancing past everyone. He sternly said, "The world of Forsaken Saints is extremely powerful. Even though Mu and I have become much stronger in the past few years, stopping them won't be easy. Not to mention, they have the unfathomable Spirit King as well. As a result, Mu and I need to hurry to the world of Forsaken Saints immediately and heavily injure them before they can make sufficient preparations. We'll set up the battlefield in the world of Forsaken Saints. Because of the war, the Tian Yuan continent has already been torn apart. It's time for the world of Forsaken Saints to pay a price." "Jianshan, let us go with you," Houston said firmly. "Uncle Xiu, it's all thanks to your protection that the Tian Yuan continent has been able to last until now. Just leave the rest to me and Mu Jianshan said with a gentle gaze. He had always felt gratitude towards Houston. Even though his strength had increased, Houston was still one of the people he respected the most. "Great-grandson, you have to be careful. The Spirit King is very powerful. He possessed the strength to fight against godhood experts 20 years ago. I wonder if his strength has increased after 20 years. If you can't defeat him, don't try to force yourself. Retreat as soon as possible," Yang Lai said. He was filled with joy and pride. Jianshan nodded. His gaze paused on Shangwan Aojian for a while before entering the tunnel with Shangwan Mu. Chapter 1599. Over a dozen Receival protectors stopped at the top of the World Mountains in the world of Forsaken Saints. They chatted idly as they stared at the tunnel from time to time. "Elder Ouyang told us to wait here for orders 3 days ago. He, Elder Xiongzhong, and 5 other elders entered the spatial tunnel to attack the temple. It's been 3 days. Has the temple blocking the otherworld entrance still not been breached?" "Yes," a middle-aged man in golden robes asked. Although Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen had already reached reciprocity and were no longer elders, the two of them were willing to remain elders out of respect for the current Spirit King. As a result, everyone still referred to the two of them as elders in the world of Forsaken Saints and not Spirit Kings. Even though that was the case, they were still referred to separately from the other 5 elders. "Since Elder Ouyang has told us to wait here, the Divine Hall must be broken through soon. Let's wait patiently. Once the Divine Hall is broken through, Elder Ouyang will definitely send a message to us," said another Receival protector. He was an old man who seemed nothing special. However, his eyes were extremely deep and seemed to possess the vicissitudes of life. Clearly, he had lived for a very long time already. "Elder Ouyang and Elder Xiongzhong have both reached reciprocity. Either one of them can flatten the other world if they take action. Telling us to wait here is just to clean up the mess," said a middle-aged man in a red robe. The person who spoke was a middle-aged man in red robes. He had a head of fiery red hair, and he played with the leaping flames on his finger. Clearly, he was an Origin Realm expert with the attribute of fire. The other Origin Realm experts all agreed with what the red robe man had said. Although the other world had forced them back, it was still nothing in the eyes of the world of Forsaken Saints. Once Origin Realm experts appeared, no one could contend against them. As Receival experts, they could only clean up the mess. At this moment, the tunnel up ahead suddenly became extremely turbulent. Violent streams of energy surged out, surging into the world of Forsaken Saints and out of the World Mountains. In the end, they were shattered by the spatial cracks around the World Mountains and the bolts of lightning with shocking might. The Origin Realm protectors all stopped talking as well. All of them stared at the tunnel. An invisible energy permeated their surroundings, blocking the streams of energy that surged out of the tunnel. It was unable to harm them at all. The Divine Hall on the other side must have been broken through, which is why the tunnel is acting strangely, many people thought. Such thoughts emerged in the minds of many people. They were even prepared to receive the order at any time and then enter the spatial passage. The streams of energy wreaking havoc in the tunnel became even more violent. Gradually, the Origin Realm protectors frowned. This was because the energy in the tunnel today was several times more powerful than before. They could even clearly sense that there seemed to be some other presence mixed in with the streams of energy. The presence was extremely powerful, to the point where it made them feel surprised. Boom! It was also at this moment that a heavy sound suddenly rang out from the tunnel. Immediately, an extremely powerful pulse of energy leaked out, causing the expressions of the protectors to change drastically. They immediately retreated as quickly as they could. A few figures shot out from the tunnel like arrows. They moved so quickly that only a blur could be seen. They whistled through the air as powerful pulses of energy radiated around them. To no surprise, these people were Ouyang Yongwon and the others. They had traveled as quickly as they could through the tunnel, kicking up powerful pulses of energy along the way. This was why they had created such a great disturbance when they charged out of the tunnel. It's Elder Ouyang and Elder Xiongzhong. The dozen or so protectors who were on standby also recognized them and cried out in alarm. Their faces were full of doubt and puzzlement. They couldn't understand what Elder Ouyang and Elder Xiongzhong were doing. They actually rushed out of the space passage like stray dogs. It was as if they had encountered something very terrifying. Quick, pass on my orders. Get all the protectors here as quickly as possible. Don't waste a single moment. Ouyang Yongwon ordered loudly before he could regain his footing. He was extremely stern. The protectors were stunned when they heard that. However, their faces suddenly changed when they saw Elder Ouyang covered in blood. Disbelief filled their faces. Without any hesitation, they immediately sent a message to the other protectors. Order all the guards of the Sacred Spirit Hall to get here as quickly as possible. Xiongzhong sternly ordered as well. Idiot, if Jianshan really does chase after us, do you think the Holy Emperor will be able to threaten Jianshan? Ouyang Yongwon scolded Xiongzhong. He did not show any respect at all. Xiongzhong coldly glanced at Jianshan's chest and said with a deep voice, "The guards can set up a formation. Although they can't threaten Jianshan, they're still a force to be reckoned with. It's better than nothing. They might be able to stop him at a crucial moment. Haven't you been beaten up enough by Jianshan?" Ouyang Yongwon's eyes turned cold when he heard that. He snorted coldly and said nothing more. He had indeed suffered greatly at Jianshan's hands. If it were not for his extremely precious healing pills, his wounds would have been even more severe. Ouyang Yongwon formed a seal with his hands, and a streak of light flashed, vanishing in a single instance. Afterward, he said, "I've already sent a message to the Spirit King, but the Spirit King is in the very depths of the 3rd floor. It seems to be isolated from the outside world, so we can't enter. I wonder if the Spirit King can receive my message or not." Jianshan carried the twin swords on his back as he made his way through the tunnel with Shangguanmu at a steady pace. They arrived at the exit very soon, but the exit had been blocked by a formation, so they were unable to see what was outside. "Be careful. They've probably set up an ambush outside," said Shangguanmu cautiously. Jianshan nodded slightly. "The only person I truly fear from the world of Forsaken Saints right now is the Spirit King. It's very difficult for Ouyang Yongwon and the others to pose a threat to me. Mu'er, follow behind me." With that, Jianshan extended a finger, and a resplendent strand of sword chi shot toward the formation at the entrance with lightning-like speed. The formation was not very powerful. Its true purpose was to conceal the world of Forsaken Saints, as well as serve as a warning. It shattered loudly under Jianshan's sword chi. All the Origin Realm experts of the world of Forsaken Saints had gathered at the top of the World Mountains. Although they had lost a few people on the Tianyuan continent, there were still over 30 receival protectors, 5 returnance experts, and 2 reciprocity experts. The total number of Origin Realm experts had almost reached 40. At this moment, all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints had gathered in a formation, ready for battle. The moment the formation shattered, all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints took action. All of them had learnt the details from the 5 returnance elders and understood the severity of the matter. As a result, they did not hold back at all when they struck. They unleashed their full strength right from the start. Origin energy wildly surged from all the Origin Realm experts. They launched their most powerful attacks at the spatial tunnel at the same time. Their attacks fused together before they entered the tunnel, forming an extremely powerful pillar of energy completely condensed from Origin energy. It charged into the tunnel with terrifying pulses of energy, heading toward Jianshin. Chapter 1600. Jianshin had expected something like this long ago. His expression did not change as the chaotic force within him surged wildly. It condensed in his right hand in a single moment, forming a sword chi that was over 1 meter long. It pulsed with destructive energy. At the same time, a dazzling sword chi condensed in a single moment as well. It fused with the chaotic force and pulsed with devastating energy. This was Jianshin's 8th layer chaotic force and his comprehension of the way of the sword. Either one of the 2 powers possessed extremely shocking power, so when combined, the attack had reached an extremely terrifying level. As Jianshin stabbed out, the surroundings shook. The space at the top of the world mountains shattered as the mysterious power that permeated the surroundings completely dispersed under the might of Jianshin's attack. The lightning in the surroundings collapsed from the pressure of the attack before it could even land. The might of Jianshin's attack had surpassed mid-reciprocity, reaching the level of late reciprocity. At the same time, due to the power of the laws of the way of the sword, the attack would rank as one of the strongest even among late reciprocity experts. The sword chi collided with the pillars of energy from almost 40 Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints and immediately erupted with a boom. The attack was extremely terrifying, causing space to collapse and the world to change color. The entire world mountain shook violently, causing countless rocks to fall. However, the mountain was extraordinary as well. It could not be compared to a regular mountain range. It was shockingly tough, so it did not suffer much from the attack. It was severely damaged. However, the shaking of the mountain caused a great reaction to the entire world of Forsaken Saints. The ground of the entire world shook violently with the shaking of the mountain. An extremely great earthquake occurred, causing countless mountains to collapse and cities to collapse. Thick cracks appeared on the ground as well. The world mountains were like the heart of the world of Forsaken Saints. The disturbances there would directly affect the entire world. The pillar of energy that all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints dispersed as a terrifying ripple of energy. All of them could not help but stagger backwards from the powerful ripple of energy. Their faces paled as blood oozed from the corner of their mouths. Before them, Jianshin walked out of the tunnel step by step against the terrifying ripple of energy. The sword chi in his hand had not completely dispersed, but it had become dim and pulsating. All the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints stared at the unscathed Jianshin in shock. Their hearts churned. Even Ouyang Yangwan, Xiongzhong, and the 5 other elders struggled to remain calm. After all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints had worked together this time. The power of their attack was extremely close to, or even at late reciprocity, yet it was unable to harm Jianshin at all. All of them found this unbelievable. Suddenly, Jianshin vanished from where he was with a single movement. He charged toward Ouyang Yangwan as a blur. His eyes were cold as he radiated with powerful killing intent at all, causing the temperature in the surroundings to plummet. Ouyang Yangwan had injured Xiao Ling, Xiao Jin, Tai Ta, and the White Tiger on the Tianyuan continent. Even his sister, Chanyang Mingyue, had been heavily injured by Ouyang Yangwan. This time, in particular, if he had not returned in time, all the Origin Realm experts on the Tianyuan continent would have been slain by Ouyang Yangwen. As a result, Jianshan felt boundless killing intent towards Ouyang Yangwen. Form the God-slaying formation. As Jianshan charged towards Ouyang Yangwen, Xiongzhong bellowed out as well. His voice was even slightly faster than Jianshan's attack on Ouyang Yangwen. Jianshan brushed past Ouyang Yangwen as a blur. The sword chi in his hand stabbed toward Ouyang Yangwen's head as well. The sword chi passed through Ouyang Yangwen's head without any resistance. There was no blood. Ouyang Yangwen's figure faded in Jianshan's eyes before vanishing in the end. The World Mountains and all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints vanished with him. He was no longer in the World Mountains of the world of Forsaken Saints. Instead, he was in a hazy space. Formation space. Jianshan remained emotionless. He looked around and sighed. The heritage of the world of Forsaken Saints was indeed extremely deep. It was incomparable to the Tianyuan continent. They even had formations that Origin Realm experts could use. At this moment, a powerful sword chi shot out from nowhere. It shot toward Jianshan with devastating power. The supreme might of the sword chi had already reached mid-reciprocity. It had even surpassed mid-reciprocity and reached late reciprocity. Moreover, it was not the only strand of sword chi. After it appeared, the surrounding space twisted violently once again. Afterwards, a second, third, and fourth strand of sword chi appeared. Only when 9 strands of sword chi had appeared did it stop. Every single strand of sword chi radiated with devastating ripples. Their power was on par with the first strand of sword chi. The 9 strands of sword chi enveloped the surroundings as soon as they appeared, trapping Jianshan within. Supreme sword chi radiated from them, permeating the entire formation space. Afterward, the 9 strands of sword chi shone with resplendent light as they shot toward Jianshan with devastating power. They're just a little short of late reciprocity. My 8th layer chaotic body is equivalent to the peak of early reciprocity. If I include the Way of the Sword, there are very few late reciprocity experts who can rival me, Jianshan murmured to himself. His eyes were filled with interest. His soul had already reached late reciprocity, so the incomplete formation space was obviously unable to trap the senses of his soul. He expanded the senses of his soul and could clearly see that the formation was constructed on an ancient formation diagram. Ouyang Yangwen and the others relied on the diagram to cast the formation. The moment the 9 strands of sword chi shot out, all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints paled. In that instance, they had consumed a third of their origin energy. The god-slaying formation had been obtained by the Spirit King after he had broken through the seal in the depths of the Sacred Spirit Hall with his strength at godhood. He had then given it to them. If they could unleash its full power, they would possess the power to kill gods. However, they still did not have a complete grasp over the formation. Coupled with the fact that their strength was limited, not only were they unable to unleash the full power of the formation, but also consumed an extremely great amount of energy. They could only unleash 3 attacks at most, and after that, they would run out of energy. I refuse to believe that Jianshan is still alive. Although the god-slaying formation hasn't been used at all, it's still enough to heavily injure or even kill late reciprocity experts, Ouyang Yangwen said coldly. He shivered as soon as he thought about how Jianshan had fended off all the Origin Realm experts. He had never thought that Jianshan's strength would reach a level he could only look up to after 20 years. Chapter 1601. Many Receival Protectors and a few Returnance Elders from the world of Forsaken Saints felt bitter inside when they heard Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen's conversation. They felt extremely aggrieved. 20 years ago, the overall strength of the Tianyuan continent was nothing in their eyes. If it were not for the extraordinarily powerful Divine Hall that had suddenly appeared, they would have conquered the other world already. However, who would have thought that they would be forced into such a state by a single person from the Tianyuan continent after 20 years, to the point where they needed to work together in a formation to temporarily deal with him? If the formation collapsed and the Spirit King did not appear, all the Origin Realm experts present would probably die. It had only been 20 years, yet the situation had changed so drastically. Many Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints struggled to accept this even now. A huge statue stood in the depths of the third floor of the Sacred Spirit Hall. Its eyes had been shattered, leaving behind 2 deep slashes. A gate similar to a space gate was hidden within the statue's eyes. Behind the gate was a small world that seemed like a paradise. The Origin energy there was several times denser than the outside world. At this moment, a middle-aged man sat in the center of this small world that seemed like a paradise. The middle-aged man's appearance was nothing special. As he sat there, a terrifying aura that was powerful enough to cause the world to tremble unknowingly radiated from him. He stood above the sky, and with a wave of his hand he could collapse space. He was terrifyingly powerful. The middle-aged man was the Spirit King, the most powerful existence in the history of the world of Forsaken Saints. At this moment, the Spirit King slowly opened his eyes. His face was calm, and no one could tell what he was feeling. He indifferently glanced over the world and only murmured after quite a while of silence. The laws of this world are incomplete. There's a restriction from the world. Is it really impossible to break through to godhood in this world? Even if I comprehend the laws and grasp the key to godhood, I still can't truly set foot in that domain. My strength has reached late reciprocity after 20 years of seclusion. I'm at the peak of reciprocity, but I'm still unable to break through to godhood. Can I only truly reach godhood after I go to the saints' world? However, the world of Forsaken Saints is not a real world. After uncovering the secrets of the spirit sages hidden here, I promised Senior he too that I would return to the saints' world with the spirit sages. The tunnel to the saints' world is in another world. Since I can't break through, there's no point in continuing my seclusion. It's time to leave, the Spirit King murmured. At this moment, his face suddenly changed. With a flip of his hand, a simple medallion appeared. It flickered with a dazzling red light. The Spirit King frowned. That's the most urgent message. Normally, a message of this level would only be sent when something extremely important has happened. What's happening outside? With that, the Spirit King vanished from the miniature world. As if he had teleported, he appeared in the Sacred Spirit Hall in a single moment. 9 strands of extremely sharp sword chi instantly condensed around Jianshin within the formation on the top of the World Mountains. With a thought, the 9 strands of sword chi all turned into streaks of light, shooting toward the sword chi from the god-slaying formation in the surroundings with lightning-like speed. With a boom, the 18 strands of sword chi collided. They erupted with terrifying power, causing the entire formation space to violently tremble. All the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints trembled at that moment. Grunts rang out from their throats while blood oozed from the corners of the receival experts' mouths. Quick, the second attack. Ouyang Yangwen became extremely stern. He immediately ordered a second attack. Now that the Spirit King was not present, all of them would face true, life-threatening danger if they could not stop Jianshin. All the Origin Realm experts gritted their teeth as a smear of madness appeared in their eyes. They immediately channeled Origin energy into the formation and launched a second attack. However, Jianshin did not give them the time to launch a second attack. Jianshin used his chaotic force and the power of the laws of the sword to condense a sword chi that was over 1 meter long. He shot it toward the space above his head with lightning speed. Boom! Jianshin's attack had reached late reciprocity. It had clearly exceeded the limits of the formation space. So with a great sound, the entire space immediately collapsed. It was not that the god-slaying formation was not powerful, but that Ouyang Yangwen and the others had only grasped 10 or 20% of it. Coupled with the fact that their strength was limited, they could only unleash an extremely limited amount of the god-slaying formation that was known to be able to kill gods. It could easily kill early or even mid-reciprocity experts, but it was powerless against late reciprocity experts. With the formation destroyed, Ouyang Yangwen, and all the other Origin Realm experts suffered a powerful backlash. All of them vomited blood as they stared at Jianshun in shock. Jianshun flew into the sky. An ancient scroll hovered above his head, radiating with a strange presence. He grabbed the scroll and saw that the words God-slaying formation were clearly written on it. This scroll was an item that could not be missing when casting the God-slaying formation. Jianshun did not study it in detail. He casually stowed the scroll away in his space ring. He knew that it was a treasure that could even kill gods when its true power was unleashed. Jianshun did not hesitate. He gathered sword qi in his hand and charged toward Ouyang Yangwen with killing intent. Ouyang Yangwen's face changed drastically. He retreated in a hurry while a blood-red world appeared behind him. The blood-red sun and crescent moon intersected as he used the secret technique of the blood sun and crescent moon. Xiongzhong moved at the same time. Just like Ouyang Yangwen, he used the secret technique of the blood sun and crescent moon without any hesitation. This secret technique was the most powerful secret technique they possessed right now. Now that they faced Jianshun, they had no choice but to risk their lives. In a single moment, Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen used the three moves of the blood sun and crescent moon simultaneously. However, the secret technique was nothing before Jianshun with their strength at early reciprocity. Jianshun destroyed Xiongzhong and Ouyang Yangwen's secret techniques in an unstoppable manner. The sword qi in his hand shone with dazzling white light as he stabbed it toward Ouyang Yangwen's forehead mercilessly. Jianshun, at this moment, a heavy voice boomed through the surroundings, echoing through the sky like thunder. With the voice, a terrifying sword qi permeated the surroundings. A pitch-black, metal sword pierced through space at the end of the horizon, shooting toward the world mountains with lightning speed. It moved at an unimaginable speed, arriving at the peak of the world mountains in the next moment from the extremely distant horizon. It directly shot toward Jianshun with an earth-shaking presence. Wherever the black sword passed by, the space behind it would be reduced to a pitch-black chasm, directly collapsing. From afar, it seemed like a black line had appeared in the sky. The Spirit King. Jianshun's heart skipped a beat. He immediately became stern. With the arrival of the Spirit King, Jianshun's attack paused for a moment. However, he recovered very quickly and continued stabbing out. He was extremely determined to kill Ouyang Yangwen. However, Ouyang Yangwen used everything he had to dodge the attack. In the end, he managed to avoid the fatal strike by a hair's breadth. However, his arm had been severed by Jianshun's sword qi. Chapter 1602. With a boom, the Zi-Ing sword and the metal sword collided, causing the entire world to violently shake. The entire world mountain shook, space shattered, and the sun and moon dimmed. The sky lost its blood-red color, becoming dark. The supreme sword qi condensed from the two swords shot off in all directions, leaving behind deep cracks in the space behind them. A few stray strands of sword qi even reached the Origin Realm experts at the top of the world mountains, causing their expressions to change. They all dodged in a horrible manner. Some of the strands of sword qi shot past the protectors, cutting through their skin and drawing blood. In the blink of an eye, many of the receival protectors from the world of Forsaken Saints were covered in blood. They had suffered many wounds. Even though they had only grazed their skin, it was still very painful. Ziying's sword dimmed after the strike and flew back. The Spirit King's sword had dimmed as well, but it did not retreat. It continued to shoot toward Jianshun as a black streak of light. It surged with killing intent and shocking sword qi. The difference in strength between the two of them had been determined through the battle. Jianshun's current strength was clearly slightly weaker than the Spirit King's. Jianshun was stern. He glared at the black sword that shot over with lightning-like speed. He formed a seal with his hand, and an azure light suddenly appeared. With a clear thrum, Qing Suo's sword flew out from his back and collided with the black sword. Only after withstanding the attack from Qing Suo's sword did the black sword retreat, because it had run out of energy. Qing Suo's sword dimmed as well. This was not because the twin swords were no match for the Spirit King's sword. Instead, the spirits of the twin swords were still weak. Coupled with the fact that the strength of a sword was directly related to the cultivation of its master, the twin swords needed to be used together to stop the Spirit King's sword. It seemed like a clash between Jianshan and the Spirit King's weapons, but in reality, it was the first time they had clashed. As the sword flew back, a figure appeared in the distant horizon. He seemed to have fused with the space there. With each step he took, he could cross a great distance. In just 3 steps, he appeared in the periphery of the World Mountains. He caught the sword that had flown back. Fantastic, the Spirit King has arrived. We're saved now. The Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints all let out a sigh of relief with the Spirit King's arrival. They were all overjoyed. Not only did the Spirit King's appearance allow them to escape death, but it also allowed them to see the dawn of victory. There was no need to doubt the Spirit King's strength. He had already established himself as invincible in their hearts. So all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints felt almost blind admiration and confidence for the Spirit King. Even though they knew that Jianshan was extremely powerful as well, they did not believe that Jianshan was the Spirit King's opponent. Ouyang Yangwen and Xiong Zhong let out a sigh of relief as well. They felt like they were facing the god of death when they clashed with Jianshan earlier. Ouyang Yangwen in particular had become covered in cold sweat. He had almost died just then. However, before Ouyang Yangwen could rejoice, he suddenly felt a chill from the bottom of his heart. He felt an extremely great sense of danger. At this moment, Jianshan did not pay too much attention to the Spirit King. He had already locked onto Ouyang Yangwen's presence. The azulate swords hovered above his head as they shone with dense light. He took a step and arrived before Ouyang Yangwen in a single instance. He extended a finger. Ouyang Yangwen's eyes immediately narrowed to the size of needles. Disbelief filled his eyes. He had never thought that Jianshan would be so determined to kill him. Even the Spirit King's arrival was unable to change Jianshan's killing intent. If Ouyang Yangwen was in his peak condition, he would have been able to put up a struggle, but now he had been injured on the Tian Yuan continent and suffered a backlash from the God-slaying formation. Coupled with the fact that he had lost an arm, he was extremely heavily injured. He could not even use half of his strength, so he was unable to dodge Jianshan's attack. The Spirit King's eyes narrowed as well. Jianshan was just too close to Ouyang Yangwen. Coupled with the fact that Jianshan had moved extremely quickly, the Spirit King was unable to save him in time. He immediately snorted coldly, and an extremely vast presence flooded the surroundings. It crushed down on Jianshan in layers, causing the space around Jianshan to rapidly freeze. At the same time, he swung his sword, and a resplendent strand of sword chi shot toward Jianshan with lightning speed. With a thought, the azulate swords above Jianshan's head struck out together, blocking the Spirit King's attack. White light pulsed from the tip of his finger, causing the surrounding space to distort and prevent it from freezing. He did not slow down at all as he extended his finger toward Ouyang Yangwen. Everything happened in a single moment. Jianshan's finger expanded in Ouyang Yangwen's eyes as it pulsed with white light. In the end, with a spurt, Jianshan's finger pierced Ouyang Yangwen's skull effortlessly. The powerful sword chi annihilated Ouyang Yangwen's soul in a single instance. At the same time, the azulate swords blocked the Spirit King's attack. However, this time, the Spirit King had personally sent out sword chi, so the attack seemed to have surpassed the Origin Realm and reached the level of godhood. It was completely different from before. With a boom, the azulate swords were blown away, while the Spirit King's sword chi continued toward Jianshan without weakening at all. It pierced through space with a shocking presence. It was extremely powerful. Jianshan was stern. Suddenly, he bellowed out and raised his right arm above his head. A 300-meter-long sword chi condensed in his hand in a single instance before swinging toward the Spirit King's head. Heaven's Severing Strike. The Heaven Severing Strike was one of the sword techniques Jianshan had obtained from the sword spirits in the very beginning. Although it was only a basic technique, it came from the Immortals world after all, so its quality had far surpassed Saint-tier battle skills. As the sword slashed down, a sword domain suddenly formed, causing the space where the sword slashed down to instantly become an independent domain. Within this domain, the power of the sword was endlessly magnified, and the opponent was suppressed by the domain. As Jinshin's strength increased and his comprehension of the way of the sword deepened, the power of these sword techniques he used was incomparable to before. At the same time, a pleasant zither melody suddenly rang out. Visible sound waves shot out from Shangwanmu zither to fend off the Spirit King's sword chi. However, the Spirit King's attack had basically reached the level of godhood. It was impossible for Shangwanmu to do anything with her strength at the peak of mid-reciprocity. The zither melody directly dispersed when it came in contact with the sword chi, like a moth drawn to a flame. After all, once someone reached godhood, both their personal cultivation and battle prowess would surpass the origin realm. It was equivalent to stepping into an even higher domain. Boom! The two powerful sword chi collided in the air, erupting with devastating power. The world mountains shook even more violently, while the entire world of Forsaken Saints experienced a great earthquake. The ground cracked, the sea churned, and countless mountains collapsed in various places. Their clash at the top of the world mountains had a huge impact on the entire world. Chapter 16:03. Sword techniques required swords to unleash their full power. Jinshin's azulate swords had been knocked away, so he was unable to recall them in time. As a result, he was unable to unleash the full power of his sky-severing strike. Even with the amplification of the sword domain, it was still slightly weaker than the Spirit King's attack. With a boom, the Spirit King's sword chi collided with Jinshin's sword technique as a white streak of light. It dispersed Jinshin's attack before continuing toward Jinshin with an unstoppable force. However, after this powerful sword chi was blocked, its power was greatly reduced. Spurt. The sword chi pierced through Jinshin's barrier of light and heavily struck Jinshin's chest. Jian Chun immediately trembled, but soon afterwards, the chaotic force within him began to surge wildly. At that moment, the chaotic force within him surged wildly. In a flash, all the surging chaotic force had condensed on his chest, causing the defenses of his chest to reach an extremely shocking level. Jinshin had pushed the supreme defenses of the chaotic body to the limit. Let alone receival experts, even return its experts would struggle to injure him with the toughness of his body. The Spirit King's sword chi became slightly weaker after piercing Jinshin's barrier of light. As a result, the sword chi failed to pierce Jinshin's chest. It only pierced Jinshin's flesh and was stopped by his sternum. Jinshin was constantly pushed back by the powerful force from the sword chi. With every step he took back, the entire world mountains would shake. Huge cracks would appear on the ground, as if he was stepping on the heart of the world mountains with each step. However, the world mountains did not collapse. Aside from countless rocks and cracks, they were not heavily damaged, even after enduring the shockwaves from the battle between Jinshin and the Spirit King. At this moment, the twin swords flew back from afar. They shone with a dazzling light as they struck the sword chi that was still on Jinshin's chest. They dispersed the sword chi and created a terrifying ripple of energy that wreaked havoc in the surroundings. The Spirit King indifferently glanced past Jinshin's corpse. He was emotionless, making it impossible to tell what he was feeling. He took a step forward with his sword, and with that step, he appeared before Jinshin as if he had teleported. His sword shone brightly as he stabbed out. The strike contained the way of the sword and the power of the laws of the world. The strike seemed to possess the might of the entire world, causing the world to lose its color. In the end, the strike seemed to become the only thing in the world. At the same time, the Ziying sword returned to Jinshin's hand. With the sword in hand, Jinshin's presence suddenly skyrocketed. If he had only been a slumbering little beast before, then he was now like an awakened beast with a devastating presence. Jinshin's arms suddenly trembled, and he stabbed out as a blur. He moved extremely quickly while the Ziying sword shone brightly as well, dyeing the sky purple. Jinshin's strike. It had also fused with the way of the sword and possessed the power of the laws of the world. At the same time, there was a destructive presence of chaotic force hidden within it. As a result, the strike was much more powerful than before, even though he did not use a sword technique. It seemed to have surpassed reciprocity and reached godhood. Boom! The Ziying sword and the dark sword clashed with devastating might. They erupted with a great boom, collapsing space and causing the world mountains to shake violently. The terrifying shock waves of the battle expanded, affecting the entire world of Forsaken Saints. In just a short moment, the vast world of Forsaken Saints had been reduced to a horrible state. The sea churned as tsunamis swept into the sky. Countless cities and mountains collapsed while countless people were injured by the shockwaves. The eruption of the two attacks that were equivalent to godhood seemed like the end of the world to the world of Forsaken Saints. The power was just too great. Even if it was only equivalent to the weakest godhood expert, it was still enough to destroy the world. Jinshin and the Spirit King both retreated after the strike. The Spirit King only took 3 steps back. His expression remained the same as before as the light in his eyes flickered. On the other hand, Jinshin retreated several dozen meters as his face flushed. Even though neither of them had used any secret techniques or sword techniques, Jinshin had clearly lost the upper hand. The Spirit King possessed the battle prowess of a godhood expert many years ago, not to mention that he had reached the peak of reciprocity in the past 20 years. As a result, his current strength had surpassed the past. Jinshin's 8th layer of the chaotic body was only equivalent to early reciprocity. With his various advantages, he also possessed the battle prowess of a godhood expert, but he was still slightly weaker than the Spirit King. The Spirit King hovered in the air as he stared at Jinshin with shining eyes. He calmly said, "I remember when I first met you. You were only equivalent to a receival expert. The second time you fought with Xiongzhong, you managed to heavily injure Xiongzhong, who was at the major achievement of late returnance, and forced him to flee. This is the 3rd time we've met, and you possess the same strength as me. Your rate of growth is so fast that even I cannot help but feel shocked. You're not bad either. You're the most outstanding genius in the history of the world of Forsaken Saints, the strongest Spirit King. But speaking of which, it's all thanks to you that my strength could increase so much in such a short amount of time. If it weren't for the pressure from you, it would have been impossible for my strength to increase so much in such a short amount of time," Jinshin said with a deep voice. Although his strength had skyrocketed, he still felt extremely pressured when he faced the Spirit King. "Jinshin, if we continue fighting with our battle prowess at godhood, the destruction will be far too great. This world will be plunged into misery and suffering. Why don't we fight in the depths of space on the other side? What do you think?" The Spirit King said. He did not want to continue fighting with Jinshin in the world of Forsaken Saints, or the world would suffer extremely heavy losses. All those below the Origin Realm might even lose their lives. After all, their battle was a battle between godhood experts. It was so destructive that it could not be compared to a battle between Origin Realm experts. The other side of space was clearly the world of the Tianyuan continent. Jinshin did not reply. He raised his head and glanced at the space above him. A gleam of light flashed through his eyes. The world gradually returned to peace. Only the blood-red sun and crescent moon hung in the sky. There was nothing else aside from that. You've seen it too. The world of Forsaken Saints is not a complete world. It's not even a real world. There's no starry sky here, said the Spirit King. Jinshin said emotionlessly, when your world of Forsaken Saints launched a large-scale attack on our Tianyuan continent, it caused great damage to our world. The Tianyuan continent has been reduced to pieces and countless people have died. I've taken the initiative to attack your world of Forsaken Saints to set up the battlefield in your world so that your world of Forsaken Saints will suffer the same fate. How can I let you do as you wish? Chapter 1604. A gleam of light flickered through Jinshin's eyes when he heard that. He knew that the Spirit King was not lying. If it were only a battle between Origin Realm experts, even if they were at reciprocity, the shockwaves from the battle would be terrifying, but it would be nowhere near enough to destroy the entire world. At most, it would cause great damage to the world of Forsaken Saints. This was because everything in the world of Forsaken Saints had become much more powerful than the Tian Yuan continent after being nourished by chaotic force for countless years. However, even with that being the case, it was still unable to endure a battle between godded experts. As time went on, the world would definitely be plunged into misery and suffering. If all the trillions of lives in the world died to their hands, Jinshin knew that celestial decay would definitely descend, and its power would reach an extremely terrifying level. However, Jinshin had come to the world of Forsaken Saints to avoid the battle taking place on the Tian Yuan continent, so how could he agree to the Spirit King's suggestion so easily? A gleam of light flickered through Jinshin's eyes. He stared at the Spirit King's ordinary face like a sharp sword and growled, "It's not impossible for you to fight in our world, but there's a condition. From today onwards, no Forsaken Saints from your world of Forsaken Saints can take a single step onto the Tian Yuan continent." "That's impossible." The Spirit King directly rejected Jinshin's request without any hesitation at all. Jinshin's eyes turned cold. He said, "If that's the case, there's no need to say anything more. We can only fight." With that, Jinshin's presence immediately surged. The Ziying sword in his hand shone with a dazzling violet light as he aggressively charged toward the Spirit King. The Qing Suo sword hovered above his head as it flickered with an azure light. Under the control of Jinshin's soul, it was ready to strike out at any time. The Spirit King's eyes were cold and emotionless. He glanced at Jinshin deeply before entering the tunnel with a single movement. He shot toward the Tian Yuan continent. Jinshin missed. He glanced at the Spirit King, who had already entered the tunnel, and his face immediately changed. At the same time, the Spirit King's voice boomed out from the tunnel, causing the entire tunnel to tremble. "Jinshin, I'll fight you in outer space in the other world. Don't even think about killing the protectors and elders of my world of Forsaken Saints. If you lower yourself and attack them, I can do the same," Jinshin said. "Jinshin, go quickly. You're the only one who can stop the Spirit King now. You can't let him do anything to harm the Tian Yuan continent. Leave the people from the world of Forsaken Saints to me." Shangwan Mu-er's voice rang out in Jinshin's head. Jinshin nodded. He looked at Shangwan Mu-er and said, "Then be careful." With that, Jinshin shot into the tunnel like an arrow, hurrying to the Tian Yuan continent as quickly as he could. "You need to be careful as well." Shangwan Mu-er's voice rang out from behind. It was filled with concern. The Spirit King and Jinshin had both left the world of Forsaken Saints, allowing the peak of the World Mountains to calm down for once. However, the peace was disrupted again very soon. Booms and zither music collided, causing space to shatter and the ground to collapse. Shangwan Mu-er had already begun fighting against the many Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints. Although the world of Forsaken Saints possessed an absolute advantage in terms of number of Origin Realm experts, most of them were at Receival. There were only 5 at Returnance, and Xiongzhong was the only one at Reciprocity. He was at early Reciprocity, while Shangwan Mu-er was at the peak of mid-Reciprocity. Coupled with her unique way of the zither, Shangwan Mu-er was able to fend off all the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints all by herself. Not only did she not fall behind, but she even gained the upper hand. As time went on, the eyes of many of the protectors began to blur. Their souls were gradually being controlled by the zither. In the end, the world of Forsaken Saints used a treasure that had been passed down for countless years. Only with the treasure was they able to match Shangwan Mu-er. The treasure also weakened the enchantment of the zither music, allowing the Receival protectors who were about to be controlled to gradually recover. However, their souls were suppressed by the enchantment of the zither music, which affected their strength in the end. They were unable to use 10% of their battle prowess. Basically, all the sainthood experts from the 4 races gathered around the spatial tunnel on the Tian Yuan continent. They all stared at the tunnel as an unknown light flickered through their eyes. There was excitement, eagerness, and worry. All of them knew that the greatest human expert, Jinshin, and the island master of 3 Saint Island had entered the world of Forsaken Saints. Their actions would affect the fate of the Tian-Yuan continent. They were bound together for good or ill, which was why all of them were so worried. At this moment, an indescribably tremendous pressure suddenly surged out from the tunnel. It charged into the world like a primordial beast. Soon after, the peaceful tunnel began to shake violently. The walls became covered in cracks in a single moment. The expressions of all the experts from the Tian-Yuan continent changed drastically when they sensed the tremendous pressure. Even the expressions of Poseidon, Houston, Tai Ta, Yang Lai, and the other Origin Realm experts became extremely ugly at that moment. It's the Spirit King. The Spirit King has come. Everyone retreat. Tai Ta yelled out. The tremendous presence made him shiver inside. It had definitely surpassed reciprocity. Other than Jianshun, only the Spirit King possessed such strength. What? The Spirit King has come? Has Sovereign Jianshun been defeated? Many of the sainthood experts among the four races became extremely pale. Despair filled their eyes. Boom! However, before they could think too much, a figure shot out of the tunnel with lightning speed. He turned into a blur and charged into the sky in a single instance, vanishing from everyone's sight. He moved unbelievably fast, even exceeding the reaction time of many people. The terrifying presence he gave off did not injure any of the people from the Tian-Yuan continent. Just as the figure flew out of the Tian-Yuan continent and into outer space, the tunnel began to tremble once again. With a flash of violet light, Jianshan was completely enveloped by a dense layer of violet light. He shot out of the tunnel like an arrow. He did not stop at all, charging into outer space as well. It's Sovereign Jianshan. Sovereign Jianshan hasn't been defeated. Fantastic. Jianshan is chasing after the Spirit King. Jianshan is invincible. The appearance of the violet light immediately raised the spirits of the disheartened cultivators of the four races. They cheered without a care in the world. They were extremely excited. Although many of them could not see Jianshan, the resplendent violet light and the extremely sharp sword Qi had basically become Jianshan's symbol. Chapter 1605. Stars flickered in the cold and dark outer space. They did not shine particularly brightly. No one knew just how far away they were. At this moment, a dazzling streak of violet light suddenly appeared in the deathly silent outer space. It flew into outer space from a large planet with lightning-like speed. The violet light was like a violet sun, shining brightly and illuminating the surroundings. In this dazzling purple light, a figure stood proudly within it. His figure was tall and straight, and there was a powerful sword surrounding him, causing the space to shatter and the heavens and earth to shake. This figure did not appear to be very tall and sturdy, but contained a terrifying power that could destroy the heavens and earth. On the other side, a middle-aged man hovered there calmly. He held a 4-foot-long, jet-black iron sword in his hand. He also radiated with powerful sword intent, causing the surrounding space to constantly collapse. Although he seemed ordinary, the terrifying pressure he gave off was enough to make the world tremble. To no surprise, they were Jianshan and the ruler of the world of Forsaken Saints, the Spirit King. The two of them were extremely far away from the Tian-Yuan continent. The planet where the Tian-Yuan continent resided had shrunk to the size of a fist in their eyes. Spirit King, if our Tian-Yuan continent and your world of Forsaken Saints engage in an all-out war, both our Tian-Yuan continent and your world of Forsaken Saints will be plunged into misery and suffering. At that time, the number of people who will die won't be as simple as 100,000 or a million. Instead, it'll be in the hundreds of millions. In order to avoid the calamity of a cruel war, why don't we decide the outcome of the war between the Tian-Yuan continent and the world of Forsaken Saints through our battle? Jianshan said with a heavy voice. He did not want the Tian-Yuan continent to engage in an all-out war with the world of Forsaken Saints, because the difference in strength between the people of the Tian-Yuan continent and the sainthood experts was just too great. An all-out war would be extremely disadvantageous to the Tian-Yuan continent. The Tian-Yuan continent would definitely lose in the end. Although he wanted very much to avenge his great-grandfather, he also understood that even more people from the Tian-Yuan continent would die if he lost his cool. The number would reach into the hundreds of millions. At the same time, the world was gradually recovering and the laws of the world were slowly being perfected. What the Tian-Yuan continent needed the most was time to recuperate. He believed that the Tian-Yuan continent's strength would reach a level where they no longer needed to fear the world of Forsaken Saints. At that time, the world of Forsaken Saints would have to reconsider if they wanted to invade again. Sure, if I lose, I'll only take a few protectors and elders who are willing to follow me to the Saints' world. Our world of Forsaken Saints will not take a single step into your world for the next 10,000 years. However, if I win, your planet will completely belong to our world of Forsaken Saints. He would never have made such a decision in the past, because the strength of the Tian-Yuan continent was nothing in the eyes of the world of Forsaken Saints. However, Jianshan possessed the strength to negotiate with him now. All right, then we'll decide the future of our races based on the outcome of our battle, Jianshan said. Jianshan bellowed. Violet light immediately erupted from his body as he charged toward the Spirit King like a dazzling violet sword. Space collapsed wherever he passed. The light in the Spirit King's eyes flickered. At the same time, he charged toward Jianshan. His presence surged, causing the world to tremble and space to collapse. The two of them clashed in outer space, far from the Tian-Yuan continent. The Ziying sword and the dark sword collided as the way of the sword clashed. They produced the most resplendent light, causing the sun and moon to dim. All the stars in the sky lost their light. The universe experienced destruction time and time again. Every time they clashed, they would shatter a huge region of space and throw the laws of the world into chaos. Both Jianshan and the Spirit King used their full strength. Although Jianshan's battle prowess was slightly weaker than the Spirit King's, the difference was not particularly great. He could make up for it completely with his 8th layer chaotic body and his strength as a Class 9 Radiant Saint Master. The disturbance caused by the battle between Jianshan and the Spirit King was just too great. Even on the extremely distant Tian-Yuan continent, people could still see the sun-like light in outer space. Vaguely, they could hear the rumbling sounds which heavily affected the energy of the world on the Tian-Yuan continent, causing it to become chaotic. The battle was so intense that it had never happened before. It had completely surpassed a battle between Origin Realm experts. Countless people became shocked by the destructive shockwaves of the battle. Many people from the Tian-Yuan continent, the magical beasts, the sea race, and the 100 races arrived in outer space as well. They watched the battle between Jianshan and the Spirit King from very far away. Shock filled many of their faces. Jianshan and the Spirit King clashed over 100 times with lightning-like speed. At this moment, Jianshan was covered in blood. His white robes had been dyed red, while over a dozen sword wounds had appeared on him. Every single one of them was vicious and terrifying, and there were even some that had penetrated his body. However, the powerful body of the chaotic body granted him unimaginable vitality and battle prowess. Even though he was heavily injured, his battle prowess did not decrease at all. Instead, his battle prowess became more and more ferocious. Coupled with the powerful regeneration of the chaotic body and the origin energy of a Class 9 Radiant Saint Master, his wounds healed at a rapid rate. The Spirit King's eyes narrowed as he became shocked. The Spirit King was in a horrible shape as well. He was covered in blood, some of which belonged to Jianshan and some of which belonged to him. He had also been injured in the battle against Jianshan, but his wounds were insignificant compared to Jianshan's. Daluo's sword. Suddenly, Jianshan bellowed out. At that moment, a dazzling golden light shone from his body. It possessed a strange presence as it rapidly condensed into a shining sword chi. The sword chi was so powerful that even the Spirit King frowned. He became stern. Swish! The golden sword chi shot toward the Spirit King as a golden streak of light. Wherever it passed, space collapsed. A black river formed from spatial cracks appeared, devouring all the light in the area. The power of this golden sword chi was terrifying to the extreme, exceeding the limits of this world. In front of it, space was as fragile as tofu. Sword-breaking style. At the same time, the Spirit King bellowed out. His dark, metal sword immediately shone brightly and stabbed out with a mysterious power, colliding with the sword chi. Boom! With a deafening boom, the Spirit King's sword collided with the tip of the sword chi. The sword chi did not disperse. Instead, it did not slow down at all, pushing the Spirit King back. It was also at that moment that the Spirit King's clothes were reduced to dust, revealing his bronze skin. However, his bronze skin was quickly covered in a layer of dense wounds. Each wound was extremely small, and blood flowed from them. In the blink of an eye, the Spirit King was covered in blood. The Spirit King's eyes were cold as he became extremely stern. His hair fluttered wildly as origin energy surged around him. He used all his strength to fend off the golden sword chi. The mysterious power within the sword seemed to possess a unique corrosive power as well. The golden sword chi immediately melted away at a visible rate when it came in contact with the sword chi. Chapter 1606. The Spirit King was pushed back by the terrifying speed of the sword chi in outer space. He was like a golden comet shooting through the dark, starry sky. Who knew how great of a distance he had crossed in a single instance? Jianshan flew over from afar. He did not slow down at all, pursuing the Spirit King as hard as he could. However, the sword chi was much faster than him, so not only was he unable to catch up to the sword chi, but the distance between him and the Spirit King grew wider and wider. I never thought that he would possess such a powerful ability. The Spirit King was shocked. The Spirit King was shocked. He was unable to dodge the sword chi because it was just too fast. All he could do was watch as the sword chi pushed him further and further away. If it were not for the metal sword in his hand that had stopped the tip of the sword chi, his entire body probably would have been pierced by the sword chi. The mysterious power within the metal sword rapidly ate away at the sword chi, causing its power to plummet. Finally, when the sword chi had weakened to a certain extent, the Spirit King suddenly exerted force with his right arm. The metal sword violently trembled at the tip of the sword chi, and using the powerful force, the Spirit King spun to the side and finally avoided being locked onto by the sword chi. The sword chi did not slow down at all. It continued to shoot off into the distance. In the end, with a boom, the remaining power of the sword chi struck the moon, causing it to violently shake. Afterward, it passed through the center of the moon, piercing the entire planet. Its power was shocking and terrifying. Everyone clearly saw the golden streak of light fly over from a distance. The sight of it piercing through the moon immediately shocked all of them. The battle prowess of godhood experts was actually so powerful. If they fought without any reservations, shattering a planet would not be a problem at all. Jianshan strode over from outer space. Radiant Saint Force origin energy permeated his body, causing all his wounds to rapidly heal. He had already recovered by around 70 or 80%. Breaking sword style, breaking all sword techniques in the world. I didn't expect you to have mastered such a sword technique. Jianshan was surrounded by violet light, making him seem like a god of war. He stared at the Spirit King in interest as he spoke coldly. However, he was not as calm as he seemed on the surface. Instead, he was in turmoil. The Spirit King's sword breaker made him think of a figure buried in the depths of his memories. That figure had created the sword breaker style, which could destroy all sword techniques in the world. Although there was a huge difference in strength between the two styles, where one could only deal with ordinary people while the other could destroy the world, Jianshan found a sliver of unbelievable familiarity from the Spirit King's swordbreaker style. The Spirit King also stared at Jianshan in interest. When he heard what Jianshan had said, a gleam of light flashed through his eyes. He coldly said, "It really is as I have guessed. Jianshan, it really is you." Jianshan's heart rumbled when he heard the Spirit King say, "It really is you, Jianshan." At that moment, he could not be any more shocked. He had reached the peak of his life. He had never been so shocked in the several decades he had spent in this world. This is our fated battle. I'd like to see if you can defeat me in this battle, the Spirit King said. The Spirit King's presence surged. His battle intent was so powerful that it was unprecedented. He had used the greatest strength he had ever used in this fated battle against Jianshan. Form breaker. The Spirit King bellowed out. He stabbed his sword toward Jianshan with a mysterious power. With a single strike, everything in the world fell silent. The stars in the sky dimmed. The strike possessed a mysterious power that could destroy everything in the world. It specifically targeted all tangible objects. Tai's sword technique. At the same time, Jianshan struck out as well. He fused with his sword and fused with his soul. Sword chi gathered around him as he used his body as a sword to receive the Spirit King's attack fearlessly. The two of them collided, erupting with a deafening boom. Terrifying ripples of energy shook the surroundings, creating a huge black hole that was tens of thousands of kilometers wide. The laws of the world were thrown into disarray. Jianshan and the Spirit King were swallowed by the huge crack, losing sight of the two of them. Jianshan and the Spirit King shot out from the huge black hole with lightning-like speed. They faced each other from several dozen kilometers away. Both of them were covered in blood, but Jianshan's injuries were much more severe than the Spirit King's. His body had been pierced, creating a huge, transparent hole, while the Spirit King's body was covered in several vicious wounds where blood constantly flowed. The shattering form he used was the most powerful attack that could shatter all things in the world. It was the nemesis of all tangible things, and its power was several times stronger than the shattering sword style. A will that splits the heavens, sword shakes, stars shatter. The Spirit King bellowed out. His voice shook the sky, reverberating through the surroundings. The metal sword in his hand violently shook at that moment. As the sword shook, a visible ripple of energy rapidly expanded toward Jianshan with destructive power. A meteor that was over 10 kilometers across came into contact with the ripple of energy, and it silently disintegrated, reduced to dust. Jianshan was stern. He could sense an extremely great threat from the ripple of energy. The threat was even greater than the Formbreaker. He had no doubt that if the ripple of energy touched him, he would be reduced to dust in a single instance, even with his 8th layer chaotic body. He would be reduced to dust just like the meteor. At the same time, the ripple of energy enveloped a large region of space as well. It seemed to have sealed up the surroundings, preventing Jianshan from dodging. The Spirit King's abilities were becoming more and more powerful. However, Jianshan was not afraid. Not only had his chaotic body reached the 8th layer after 20 years of seclusion, he had also gained a grasp over various sword techniques. They were incomparable to before, and every single one of them was more powerful than the sky-severing strike. Linear lightning release. With that, he turned into a sword and shot out like an arrow with a ball of resplendent violet light. With the deep rumble of thunder, he let out dazzling streaks of lightning. Every single streak of lightning was several meters thick and possessed great power. As the streaks of lightning flickered, they danced about like dragons and snakes, obliterating space as they collided heavily with the ripples of sword energy. At that moment, Jianshan seemed to have turned into a bolt of lightning. He moved with unparalleled speed, as if he could break through time and ignore space. He arrived before the ripple of energy in a single instance and collided with it. The lightning immediately twisted and several bolts of lightning were extinguished, causing Jianshan to violently tremble. His face became extremely pale in a single instance as he vomited a mouthful of blood. His chaotic body began to crack as well. However, the ripple of energy quickly collapsed when Jianshan collided with it. Jianshan vomited blood as he unleashed his greatest speed. Lightning flickered around him as he shot toward the Spirit King as a bolt of lightning. Jianshan was just too fast. He arrived before the Spirit King in a single instance. First, the Ziying sword stabbed out of the Spirit King's chest and emerged from his back, piercing his body. Afterwards, Jianshan was unable to control himself due to his speed, so he collided with the Spirit King as well. With a deep rumble, the two of them were blown away like meteors. The The Spirit King vomited a mouthful of blood. He was heavily injured, but he was not injured by Jinshan's sword. Instead, he was injured by Jinshan's collision. The moment Jinshan collided with him, the Spirit King felt like a towering mountain had collided with him. The force was so great that all his bones creaked from the pressure. His organs churned like they were being overturned. Jinshan did not fare well either. His chaotic body had already been injured from the ripple of energy, almost cracking. Coupled with a violent collision, he was even more injured. However, there was nothing he could do. He had only grasped the linear lightning release for a short period of time, so he was still rather inexperienced when using it. He was unable to control his speed, which was why his body had shot out like a cannonball after heavily injuring the Spirit King with the Ziying sword. Chapter 16:07. The Spirit King and Jinshan shot off like meteors. They both vomited blood as their faces paled. They were extremely heavily injured, and the two of them flew in the exact same direction. One of them had used a sword technique to erupt with true lightning speed. In the end, because the speed was too fast, he couldn't control it for a moment, which led to this situation. The other person was completely hit by the incomparably fast speed and was pushed back by the powerful impact force. For a moment, it was impossible for him to control his body. Boom! With a heavy boom, the two of them collided with a huge planet in the end. With a deafening boom, the entire planet shook. Sand and pebbles were kicked into the air as dust filled the air. Two huge, bottomless black holes appeared, as if they wanted to pierce through the entire planet. At the same time, an extremely terrifying ripple spread out in all directions from where the two of them had collided, affecting most of the planet. Heavens, Sovereign Jinshan and the Spirit King have fought on the moon. I can already see the dust rising from the moon. This is unbelievable. Sovereign Jinshan and the Spirit King are actually so fast. They've crossed such a great distance in just a short moment and appeared on the moon. Since ancient times, very few people on the Tianyuan continent have been able to set foot on the moon because it's just too far away from the Tianyuan continent. Even a Holy Emperor would struggle to reach it in his entire life, because the Holy Emperor is unable to absorb the energy of the world in outer space. Once he runs out of Saint Force, it'll be extremely difficult to recover. In the past million years, there doesn't seem to be a second person who has set foot on the moon aside from Fairy Haoyue. Many experts of the four races sighed in amazement in outer space. They all looked at Jinshan with admiration and yearning. In the eyes of Saint Emperors, the distance between the two places was basically insurmountable, yet the human sovereign had traversed it in a single instance. All of them yearned for such great strength. The moon had lost its peace for countless years now. The entire planet shook violently as the ground cracked and mountains collapsed. It seemed like the world was about to be destroyed. The commotion was shocking and terrifying. Two extremely powerful sword intents permeated the surroundings of the moon. They engaged in an invisible battle, causing the space there to distort and collapse. Jinshan and the Spirit King hovered in the air. Both of them were in horrible shape, covered in blood. Even though they were heavily injured, they did not seem weak at all. Their eyes were cold as they radiated with powerful battle intent. Jinshan was enveloped by a milky white light. The origin energy of a Class 9, Radiant Saint Master combined with the chaotic body rapidly healed his wounds, causing them to heal rapidly. On the other side, the Spirit King's eyes narrowed when he saw Jinshan's wounds heal at a visible rate. He immediately ingested a healing pill and charged toward Jinshan aggressively. Jinshan and the Spirit King engaged in an intense battle on the moon. Both of them used their full strength without holding back at all. They used various powerful sword techniques, abilities, and secret techniques one after another, clashing time and time again on the moon. Every single strike was devastating, constantly erupting with booms. The moon had suffered an unprecedented disaster. On that day, the originally bright moon had completely lost its luster on the Tianyuan continent. It had become dim as dust drifted into the air, obscuring the moon's glow. Whether it was the powerful sainthood experts, the weaker mortal realm experts, or even the countless ordinary people on the Tianyuan continent. They all raised their heads to look at the sky, witnessing a rare sight. Jinshin and the Spirit King's battle on the moon had reached its climax. Sword Chi crisscrossed the surroundings, destroying the surroundings. Abyssal cracks crisscrossed the ground like a spiderweb. They fought from one side of the moon to the other, causing the entire planet to be riddled with holes. It had become extremely damaged. As the two of them sent out resplendent strands of sword chi, the moon finally collapsed. It cracked down the middle, splitting into two. Everyone look! The moon has shattered. The moon has actually shattered. Heavens, Sovereign Jinshin and the Spirit King have actually shattered the moon. Sovereign Jinshin and the Spirit King are actually so powerful. This is unbelievable. All the sainthood experts and origin realm experts stared at the two halves of the moon in outer space. Their faces were filled with extreme shock and deep shock. They were greatly shocked by what they had just witnessed. At that moment, many of them felt like the end of the world had arrived. Even the moon had been destroyed in the battle, so they struggled to imagine just how terrifying the battle between Jinshin and the Spirit King was. It had to be mentioned that the moon was not much smaller than the planet they resided on. Since the battle between Sovereign Jinshin and the Spirit King could destroy a moon, did that not mean that the two of them possessed the supreme strength to destroy the planet below them as well? At this moment, all the sainthood experts of the four races felt extreme respect and fear for Jinshin. Their respect and fear for him had completely exceeded that of Poseidon, the winged tiger, Taita, and so on. Jinshin and the Spirit King each occupied a half of the cracked moon as they faced each other from afar. They were in an even worse shape than before. Their wounds were so heavy that it was enough to make people shiver from a single glance. The Spirit King's body was covered in vicious slashes. He had been pierced through 4 times, and a large chunk of his flesh had disappeared. A fist-sized hole had appeared on his steadfast face, piercing through the back of his head. Fortunately, his soul had not been harmed. However, Jinshin's injuries were even more severe than the Spirit King's. His left arm was gone, and his entire right arm was a bloody mess. He only had 2 fingers left on his right hand, while the other 3 had been severed. His body was the most heavily injured. His waist had almost been cut in half, and only a third of his flesh was connected. He had completely lost feeling in one of his legs, while his chest was pierced through. His organs had all been destroyed, and even a third of his head had been cut off, leaving only an eye. He seemed extremely vicious. If the cultivators on the Tianyuan continent saw how miserable Jinshin was right now, they would have fainted from fright. His injuries were just too severe. If it were not for his chaotic body, probably no one else would have been able to endure it. I never thought that you would actually become so powerful, forcing me into such a state. Jinshin, you really are worthy of being the rumored youngest genius of the Jianghu. Even after coming to a higher world, you're still as glorious as you were in your past life. I just find it very strange. Why were you so weak when I first saw you? The Spirit King stared at Jinshin with mixed feelings. I never thought that the most powerful Spirit King in the history of the world of Forsaken Saints would actually be my opponent in my past life, Duguchiobai. Should I call you the Spirit King or Duguchiobai? Jinshin asked with a heavy voice. He was not calm at all. The Spirit King gently sighed. Duguchiobai is not my name. It's just a title given to me by the people of the Jianghu. You should just call me Shanjian. That's my real name. Jinshin, in my past life, you killed my only disciple, which was why we ended up in a battle to the death. In the end, we ended up dying together. In this life, the difference in strength between us isn't too great. If this continues, the same thing will probably happen again. Why don't we end this battle in a draw? Reminiscence filled Jinshin's eyes. His emotions were mixed. In his past life, he did not belong to the same generation as Duguchiobai, so there was no enmity between them. It was all because of a person called Lu Kaiyun. Lu Kaiyun was Duguchiobai's only disciple. However, he was a wastrel and had offended Jinshin. In the end, he died to Jinshin's hands midway through the battle. His battle with Duguchiobai was also because of this person called Lu Kaiyun. We can end this in a draw, but from now on, your world of Forsaken Saints cannot invade the Tian Yuan continent. We will only allow Origin Realm experts to pass through the Tian Yuan continent to the Saints' world, said Jianshun. The Tian Yuan continent was his bottom line. He would not budge on this point. We'll talk about this in the future. You're even more heavily injured than me right now. Even if you can recover quickly, no one will gain anything if we continue fighting. We might even end up dying together once more, said the Spirit King. He did not agree to Jianshun's request. Clearly, he wanted a piece of land in this world as well. Although I'm heavily injured, I might not necessarily die if we continue fighting. At the very least, I still have the power to flee. Once I have a few decades to condense profound sword chi, it won't be too difficult for me to kill you, Jianshun coldly replied. There are a total of 3 moves in a will that splits the heavens. I've only grasped the first move, the sword quakes and the stars of destruction. If I grasp the second move, killing you today would be a piece of cake. I think we should end this in a draw. We can discuss the other matters in the future, said the Spirit King. He was filled with confidence and did not budge at all. Duga Chiobai, may I ask how many years you've cultivated? Jianshun glared at the Spirit King. The Spirit King actually did not want to budge on the matter of territory, which made him furious. He was tempted to fight the Spirit King again. Over 800 years, said the Spirit King. You've cultivated for over 800 years to reach your current level of cultivation, while I've cultivated for less than 100 years. Do you think you'll be my opponent in the future? As a result, we can end this in a draw, but from now on, your world of Forsaken Saints cannot invade our world, said Jianshun. Chapter 1608. What did you say? It hasn't even been 100 years since you started cultivating? The Spirit King's voice was filled with shock. Even with his mental fortitude, he struggled to remain calm at that moment. His heart churned. He had spent over 800 years to reach his current level of cultivation as a mortal, but even with that being the case, he was still the most outstanding genius the world of Forsaken Saints had seen in countless years, the strongest Spirit King. However, Jianshun had reached such a level of cultivation in less than 100 years, possessing battle prowess that was basically on par with him. He found this unbelievable. In just 100 years, he had gone from a mortal to godhood. Even though he was only at the weakest level of godhood, it was still shocking. Even in the Saints' world, such a terrifying rate of growth was enough to cause a huge uproar. Who would have thought that after the two of us perished together, not only did I not die, but you also didn't die. We both reincarnated into a foreign world, and we were so close to each other. What I didn't expect was that you actually reincarnated several hundred years earlier than me. Jianshun's expression was mixed as he sighed emotionally inside. In the past, the Spirit King from the world of Forsaken Saints had weighed down on him like a mountain, almost suffocating him. He had even treated the Spirit King as his greatest enemy. But who would have thought that the Spirit King actually came from the same world as him? Jianshun sighed inside when he saw this. He sighed at the vastness of the world, where all kinds of wonders existed. As a matter of fact, Jianshun had already guessed that the reason Dugu Chiobai had reincarnated with him was probably because of the sword spirits. This was because he could still clearly remember the moment he closed his eyes. He saw an extremely bright streak of light. It was dazzling and resplendent, covering the entire sky. Perhaps it was because the sword spirits were just too powerful when they awakened, affecting the space and laws of that world, which led to Dugu Chiobai's soul being reincarnated as well. After all, the Yuan Qi of the world he had lived in was extremely thin. There were only martial artists in the mortal world and not a single cultivator. It was far inferior to the Tian Yuan continent. A world like that obviously would not be tough, so the weak sword spirits could easily break through it. Jianshun was not particularly surprised by the great age difference between the two of them. After all, both of them were reincarnated souls. No one knew how much time had passed during the process of transmigration. It was possible that Dugu Chiobai's soul would have completed reincarnation several decades, several centuries, or even over 1,000 years after their deaths, while Jianshun would need several hundred years, several thousand years, or even longer. This was similar to the saying of reincarnation in the mortal world. From the moment of death until the second reincarnation, no one knew how long it would take. It could be an instant, or it could be thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, or even longer. Jianshun, I am indeed nowhere near as talented as you are, but I will not give in when it comes to territory. The environment of your Tian Yuan continent is incomparable to the world of Forsaken Saints. If our world of Forsaken Saints is hell, then your Tian Yuan continent is heaven. As the current Spirit King, I obviously have to think for my clansmen. If you insist on not letting the people of our world of Forsaken Saints set foot on the Tian Yuan continent, then there's only one way to do it. Defeat me. The Spirit King stared deeply at Jianshun. He was extremely determined. Although he would go to the Saints' world in the end, only Origin Realm experts had the right to enter the Saints' world. There were still many weaker clansmen in his world of Forsaken Saints. Before he left, he needed to find a more suitable place for his clansmen to live. As a result, although the Spirit King and Jianshun came from the same place, the two of them did not feel any sympathy for each other. They were both thinking for their own clansmen. Jianshun's eyes turned cold when he heard that. He said, "If that's the case, we can only continue fighting until the outcome is decided." However, a terrifying pulse appeared from the depths of outer space as soon as Jianshun finished speaking. The pulse was filled with surging power, immediately causing Jianshun's face to change. He suddenly turned his head toward the depths of outer space. To no surprise, he was looking in the direction of the Yinyang Saint Rock. However, because it was just too far away, even with Jianshun's eyesight, he was unable to see through it. He could only vaguely sense the formation that existed in the depths of outer space. At the same time, the Spirit King's eyes narrowed as well. He stared closely at the depths of outer space and was stern. He could also sense an extremely powerful pulse from the depths of outer space, which made him shiver. Aside from Jianshun and the Spirit King, all the other Origin Realm experts on the Tian Yuan continent sensed it. Immediately, they all looked in the direction of the pulse as they became extremely stern. They did not know what had happened, but the moment the ripple appeared, it made all of them shudder with fear, and chills ran down their spines. This sort of abnormality was something that very rarely happened to them. In fact, it had never happened to them before. The evil power hidden in the Yinyang Saint Rock has actually broken free. How did it happen so quickly? Jianshun's face became very ugly. It was extremely sunken. When he had left with Shangguan Mu, the Yinyang Saint Rock had only been left with a shell. It had formed a cage, trapping the evil power inside. He had estimated that the remaining rock would be able to trap the evil power for several years, or even several decades, which would be enough for him to deal with the problem of the world of Forsaken Saints. There might even be enough time for him to condense the profound sword chi. However, reality had completely exceeded his expectations. The remaining rock only managed to trap the evil power for less than a day before it was completely absorbed by the evil power, allowing it to break free. I can sense an extremely dense origin energy in the depths of outer space. No wonder there's no origin energy in this world. It's all there. What is that place? The Spirit King asked. He was not curious at all. Instead, he was very stern because he could sense an extremely great threat from that location. Quick, heal. Heal as quickly as you can. We don't have much time left, Jianshun said in a deep voice. He seemed to be in a hurry. At that moment, he became extremely stern. He immediately began to heal as quickly as he could. The Spirit King glanced at Jianshun deeply before taking out a healing pill and consuming it. He then sat down to meditate. Chapter 1609. There's an extremely evil power there. The power has already grown to an extremely terrifying level. You must have sensed its power as well, Jianshun said with a heavy voice. The Spirit King remained silent. He arrived on the two halves of the moon and sat down on a broken mountain to heal. His eyes were sharp as he stared at the depths of outer space. Strands of powerful origin energy and pressure unintentionally radiated from him, causing the surrounding space to distort and the world to tremble. I originally thought that the evil power would need several years to break free, but I was wrong. I never thought that it would come out so soon. I've never seen something so evil. Once it appears, the entire world will be plunged into chaos. No one will be able to survive. If we can't stop it, it'll bring a disaster to the world. If it's powerful enough, the entire world might even be destroyed, said Jinshin. He arrived on the other half of the moon and sat down. He stared at the Spirit King deeply and said, Shun Jian, your world of forsaken saints is connected to the Tian Yuan continent. Not only will this evil power threaten our Tian Yuan continent, even your world of forsaken saints will not be able to avoid it. I suggest that we stop the conflict between our worlds for now and work together to deal with this evil power. What do you think? This is a disaster for your world. It has nothing to do with our world. You're right. The spatial tunnel connects our worlds, but the presence is so powerful that it might not be able to threaten our world through the tunnel. At most, we'll just give up on the territory of this world and find a way to seal up the tunnel, the Spirit King said emotionlessly. Shun Jian, this is a matter of great importance. That evil aura is so strong that none of us have the confidence to face it alone. As for the space channel, although it can prevent powerful cultivators from passing through, that evil aura isn't a cultivator. Its formation isn't something that the two of us can understand. With such a special existence, perhaps the space channel can't restrict it at all. Moreover, even if you want to seal the space channel unilaterally, can't you allow me to forcefully break your seal from the other side? How are you going to seal it? Jinshin growled. A gleam of light flashed through the Spirit King's eyes when he heard Jinshin's last sentence. He asked, Are you threatening me? Originally, there was a powerful seal between our two worlds, but this seal was forcefully broken by you. Could it be that only you are allowed to break our seal, but I can't break yours? Furthermore, this evil presence is not only a threat to our Tian Yuan continent. It's a threat to your world of forsaken saints as well. With our current strength, we don't have complete confidence in defeating the evil power. If I die first, do you think you can stop the evil power all by yourself? So, we can only join forces now to fight for a chance at survival for our clansmen and loved ones and overcome this calamity. Otherwise, both our worlds will be plunged into misery and suffering, and even the two of us might not be able to survive. Jinshin said. He was filled with helplessness. Originally, he did not plan on working with the Spirit King. He planned on focusing on cultivating the profound sword chi after dealing with the world of forsaken saints. As long as he formed the profound sword chi and used the primordial god silk, he was confident that he could survive this calamity. However, the evil power did not give him enough time. After learning the cultivation method of the profound sword chi from the sword spirits, Jinshin also learned that all treasures, abilities, and secret techniques in the Immortal's world were divided into Immortal Tier and God Tier. The sword techniques he had used in his battle against the Spirit King were all at the Immortal Tier because God Tier sword techniques and secret techniques could only be grasped by immortal monarchs under normal circumstances. They could only unleash 10 or 20% of their power. Of course, there were some special ones. The profound sword chi was an extremely special sword technique. It was at the God Tier, a peak God Tier sword technique. It used one's vitality as a guide to condense 9 strands of profound sword chi and nurture them in one's soul. Cultivating this technique did not require one to be an immortal monarch. One only needed to reach the major achievement of sword origin to condense the first strand of profound sword chi. Even though condensing all 9 strands of profound sword chi required one to reach the highest realm of the way of the sword god, the profound sword chi was a peak God Tier sword technique after all. Even though condensing the first strand of profound sword chi would be unimaginably powerful. This was Jinshin's final trump card against the evil power, as well as his confidence. Unfortunately, he did not have the time to cultivate the profound sword chi right now. He could only discuss with the Spirit King about working together. The Spirit King hesitated for quite a while before agreeing to Jinshin's suggestion in the end. The two of them temporarily stopped fighting and worked together to deal with the evil power. This was because he could tell that the evil power was not only a threat to the Tian Yuan continent, but also to the world of forsaken saints. And this peace was only temporary. At this moment, a blood-red cloud rose up in the miniature world formed by the Inyang Saint Rock in the depths of outer space. It dyed the hazy space blood-red. The world was chilling, as if it had fallen into a cavern of ice. The presence of the cloud was extremely evil. The blood-red cloud surged in the surroundings, churning and blotting out the surroundings. It radiated with a terrifyingly powerful pulse of energy, causing the entire world to tremble. Large swathes of space began to collapse. At the same time, a tremendous formation vaguely appeared. It possessed astonishing power, enveloping the entire world. However, the formation trembled extremely unsteadily from a churning of the blood-red cloud. It seemed like it was about to shatter from the pressure. The blood-red cloud slowly condensed in the center of the miniature world. It constantly changed, sometimes taking human form, sometimes changing between men, women, old, and young. In the end, it took the form of a beast before constantly changing. It took the form of flowers, mountains, rocks, and everything else in the world. It had no form, so it could take the form of anything. In the end, the blood-red cloud completely solidified, taking the form of a human. It was completely blood-red, as if it had been condensed from blood. Its face was blurry, making it impossible to make out its facial features. It radiated with an extremely terrifying, chilling presence. It was evil and evil. Accompanying it was a will of destruction. The will of destruction did not target a single person or race. Instead, it targeted all living things, including the world and the universe. It was as if its existence was to destroy everything. It was the evil power hidden within the Inyang Saint Rock. The blood-red figure laughed strangely. The laughter possessed terrifying power, able to pierce through metal and rock. The moment the voice rang out, the surrounding space collapsed, plunging the world into darkness. At the same time, strands of essence that seemed to originate from the world and the surroundings condensed towards the blood-red figure. In the end, it was absorbed by the blood-red figure. After losing the essence, the surroundings were like a young man who had lost all signs of life and was about to die. Clearly, the blood-red figure possessed a special innate ability. It used an extremely special method to devour the surroundings and strengthen itself. Boom. Chapter 16:11. The moment the formation shattered, 2/3 of the origin energy that had condensed there vanished. It was all absorbed by the formation the moment the blood-red figure collided with it, increasing its power. However, even with that being the case, the formation was unable to endure the blood-red figure's collision. The formation was not the only thing that shattered. The space that the Inyang Saint Rock had created over countless years had shattered as well. At this moment, the gray space was filled with collapsing gales. The entire world had been reduced to darkness, and the rate at which it collapsed was unimaginable. In just a few seconds, the space had completely vanished, revealing the vast, starry sky. The remaining origin energy surged like a torrent, expanding in all directions. The blood-red figure floated in the starry sky. His figure was hazy and blurry, and he seemed to be condensed from blood mist. He had no facial features, and he emanated an extremely terrifying aura. When this aura spread out, it caused the starry sky to tremble. His entire body was filled with an extremely evil and cold aura. The blood-red figure let out a strange laugh. It was not real laughter, but a pulse of thought. Afterwards, strands of essence gathered from all directions in the space around it and was sucked into its body. The essence seemed to be the life of the universe and space. After losing the essence, the space around it rapidly withered and lost its vitality like the plants and trees that had lost their vitality. The essence was not the only thing that was absorbed. At the same time, the origin energy that was spreading in all directions was absorbed as well. If an origin realm expert absorbed this origin energy, their strength would definitely skyrocket, allowing many origin realm experts to break through. However, all of the origin energy had been absorbed by the blood-red figure. However, the origin energy did not increase its strength again. This was because it was already extremely powerful. If it wanted to continue increasing its strength, it would not be able to do so with so little origin energy. Afterward, the blood-red figure laughed strangely and vanished with a flash. When it reappeared, it had crossed an extremely great distance, appearing outside a planet. It turned into an extremely dense, red mist that enveloped the planet. From afar, it seemed like a huge, red planet that shone with a demonic red light. After an incense stick of time, the red mist condensed into a human form again. The planet had completely become a dead planet. Not only had the plants on the planet died, but the life force of the planet itself had died as well. The planet would lose its ability to regenerate in the future. It would no longer be able to give birth to anything alive. The blood-red figure seemed to not only devour the essence of the universe, but could also devour the life force of all planets. It was the nemesis of all life. Wherever it passed by, it would leave behind a deathly silence. The blood-red figure charged to another planet with life and continued to devour it. As it devoured, its strength increased at an extremely slow rate. Even though it was extremely slow, it was an extremely terrifying fact. If it was allowed to continue, not only would all the planets in the universe be destroyed, but even the entire universe, the entire world, would be destroyed because of its existence. If a cultivator had caused such a scene, they would have been punished unless they were so powerful that they could even resist the rules. However, due to a special reason, the rules were unable to restrain the blood-red figure at all. Soon, several planets with the presence of life died. If these planets were given countless years, they might have developed to the same scale as the Tian-Yuan continent, but now they had lost the ability to reproduce forever, let alone develop to the same scale as the Tian-Yuan continent. In the future, they would not even be able to give birth to anything alive. After absorbing several planets with life, the blood-red figure seemed to sense something. It suddenly turned its head to the depths of outer space. There, it sensed a life force that was even denser than all the planets it had absorbed combined. It was like a starving beast that had encountered delicious food. It could not resist at all. With a strange chuckle, the blood-red figure immediately flew over as a red streak of light under its instincts. It moved faster than lightning and faster than the speed of light. As it flew, the space before it seemed to fold as well. As a result, every time it passed through a fold, it seemed like it was performing a spatial leap, crossing extremely great distances in a single instance. Jinshin and the Spirit King each occupied half of the moon. The two of them healed as quickly as they could. Even though they were heavily injured, Jinshin had the chaotic body and the abilities of Class 9, Radiant Saint Master, while the Spirit King had extremely precious healing pills. As a result, the two of them healed at an extremely shocking rate. At this moment, Jinshin and the Spirit King opened their eyes at the same time. They stared at the depths of outer space sternly. Although they were unable to see anything with their eyesight, the presence of the figure condensed from the evil power was just too powerful. Even from very far away, the two of them could clearly sense it. "It's hurrying over here," Jinshin growled. With that, the milky white light around him became even brighter. He had used even more Radiant Saint Force origin energy to heal. The Spirit King was stern as well. After hesitating slightly, he took out another extremely precious healing pill and swallowed it, allowing his wounds to heal even faster. The two of them understood that they did not have a lot of time left. They needed to return to their peak condition as soon as possible. In the forbidden grounds of the City Lord's estate, Fairy Haoyue stared at the distant outer space as well. She frowned slightly as she sank into her thoughts. She said hesitantly, "This presence, is it the evil spirits recorded in the records? Legend has it that evil spirits are formed from the filth in the world, as well as the source of all evil due to various reasons. They will only appear in the lower realms, and they are extremely rare. However, once they appear, they will cause an unprecedented calamity in the lower realms, and they might even destroy the myriad of worlds. It said that countless years ago, an evil spirit wreaked havoc in the lower world. It devoured countless worlds, and in the end, it grew to a level where it could threaten the Saints' world. It led to the encirclement of several Grand Primes. 3 of them died to the evil spirit, while the other Grand Primes were heavily injured. In the end, it alarmed the 7 Grand Exalts of the Saints' world. One of them, the Anata Grand Prime, personally took action to slay the terrifying evil spirit. Chapter 16:12. The evil spirit hurried toward the Tian-Yuan continent as quickly as it could in the depths of outer space. Space seemed to fold before it, allowing it to move extremely quickly. It seemed like it was leaping through space, crossing extremely great distances with every flash. Jinshan and the Spirit King healed as quickly as they could on the moon. The 2 of them stared at the depths of outer space closely as they sensed the evil spirit's location. They were stern. The evil spirit moved very quickly, but it was just too far away from the Tian-Yuan continent. As a result, it needed some time to reach the Tian-Yuan continent. 6 hours later, Jinshan recovered first, returning to his peak condition. On the other hand, even though the Spirit King had ingested 2 precious pills, he was nowhere near as good as Jinshan. He had only recovered 50% of his wounds. The Spirit King looked at Jinshan again the moment he made a full recovery. Uncontainable surprise filled his face. Although he knew that Jinshan could heal very quickly, he had never thought that it would be so fast. He had actually recovered from such heavy wounds in just 6 hours. Shunjian, your healing is far too slow. We don't have much time left, so I'll lend you a hand. Jinshan stood up and said to the Spirit King from very far away. Afterward, he took a step and arrived before the Spirit King in just a few steps. Class 9, Radiant Saint Master Origin energy condensed in his hand as he gently pressed it against the Spirit King's shoulder. The Spirit King became vigilant, but he did not turn down Jinshan's good intentions. His vigilance did not decrease at all. Even though his entire body was enveloped by a layer of intense, gentle, milky white light, he did not relax at all. After being healed by Jinshan's origin energy, the Spirit King could clearly sense that his wounds were healing even faster than when he had ingested pills. This secretly shocked him. Only now did he truly sense the power of a Radiant Saint Master's origin energy. Although this kind of power did not possess much offensive power in his eyes, in terms of healing speed, it was simply like taking a divine pill. The Spirit King recovered very quickly with Jinshan's assistance. It was also at this moment that Jinshan took out the God-slaying formation he had obtained from the world of Forsaken Saints from his space ring. He said, since this formation is called the God-slaying formation, it must have existed specifically for slaying gods. Shunjian, you understand the God-slaying formation much better than me. May I ask just how powerful the God-slaying formation can be if all the Origin Realm experts from your world of Forsaken Saints and all the Origin Realm experts from our Tian-Yuan continent use it together? The Spirit King looked at the formation and said, since the formation is in your hands, Ouyang Yang 1 and the others must have used the God-slaying formation against you before. You should know the power of the God-slaying formation. Although the formation can easily kill experts at Divine King's level of cultivation if it is fully unleashed, the requirement of the formation's user is extremely great. Now that Ouyang Yang 1 is dead, our world of Forsaken Saints has lost an Origin Realm expert. Even if all the remaining elders and protectors work together with the people from your world to use the God-slaying formation, it'll still be very difficult for them to reach the level of godhood. The gap between godhood and godhood is not so easy to overcome. The 2 of us only managed to overcome the great gap because we grasped the way of the sword beforehand and reached a certain level of comprehension. It looks like only the 2 of us can take part in this battle. The others won't be able to help, Jinshan said with a deep voice. The following battle would be a battle between godhood experts. The Origin Realm experts had basically lost the ability to take part in the battle. Activating the power of the God-slaying formation depended on one's cultivation. It had nothing to do with battle prowess. Jianshin and the Spirit King were both at reciprocity. So if they used their cultivation to activate the God-slaying formation, the power they could unleash would not be much more powerful than their actual battle prowess. After a moment of thought, Jianshin continued, "This is a crisis of the world. If we can survive, our two worlds will be able to continue, but if we can't, our two worlds will be completely destroyed. We've basically reached the end of the road right now. Under such severe circumstances, we need to use everything we can. Although the God-slaying formation will not be able to unleash its power, it might be able to be of great use at a crucial moment." The Spirit King obviously understood what Jianshin was implying. He wanted all the Origin Realm experts of the two worlds, including a few Holy Emperor experts, to work together to cast the God-slaying formation. This would affect the safety of the two worlds, so he naturally had no objections. He stood up and said, "You're right. I'll return to the world of Forsaken Saints right now and gather all the elders and protectors. I'll leave the Origin Realm experts of the Tian Yuan continent to you." With that, the Spirit King left and made his way to the world of Forsaken Saints. Time was of the essence. They did not have much time left, so they needed to prepare everything as soon as possible. Jianshin left as well. He did not return to the Tian Yuan continent. Instead, he entered the world of Forsaken Saints with the Spirit King because Shangguan Mu was still there. When Jianshin and the Spirit King entered the world of Forsaken Saints through the tunnel, Shangguan Mu, Xiongzhong, and the other protectors and elders were still engaged in a great battle. The battle was extremely intense, causing the world mountains to constantly tremble. The entire world of Forsaken Saints was dark. Jianshin and the Spirit King returned at the same time and stopped the battle very soon. Without saying anything more, Jianshin immediately left the world of Forsaken Saints with Shangguan Mu. "Jianshin, how did your battle with the Spirit King go?" Shangguan Mu turned her head to look at Jianshin as they returned. Concern filled her eyes. The two of them walked through the tunnel. Jianshin gently held Shangguan Mu's hand and said sternly, "It ended in a draw with the Spirit King, but it's not the time to talk about our battle with the world of Forsaken Saints right now. The evil power in the Enyang Saint Rock has broken free ahead of time. It's currently hurrying toward the Tian Yuan continent. Our world is facing an unprecedented disaster. I've already reached an agreement with the Spirit King. We'll work together to fend off the evil power." Shangguan Mu's face suddenly changed when she heard that. She was familiar with the evil power sealed within the Enyang Saint Rock. No matter how much her strength had increased, she would still shiver when she faced the evil power, even though she had reached the peak of mid-reciprocity. Chapter 16:13. Jianshin and Shangguan Mu returned to the Tian Yuan continent. Almost as soon as the two of them appeared, the experts of the four races cheered deafeningly. They did not know about the situation in the world of Forsaken Saints, nor did they know whether Jianshin and Shangguan Mu had emerged victorious or not. However, they had seen the intense battle between the human sovereign and the Spirit King in outer space. The moon that had been split in half was the best proof of that. Although none of the Origin Realm experts knew the outcome of the battle between Jianshin and the Spirit King, they did know that Jianshin possessed the strength to rival the Spirit King. This allowed the Tian Yuan continent to truly possess the power to fend off the world of Forsaken Saints. Jianshin waved his hand and stopped the cheering. He did not make any small talk and directly gathered all the Origin Realm experts of the four races in the Supreme Divine Hall of Mercenary City. Jianshin told everyone everything he knew about the evil power in the Supreme Divine Hall. Immediately, the hall fell into a deathly silence. The joy and excitement they had felt from Jianshin's battle prowess that could rival the Spirit King vanished in a single moment. We sensed the presence from the depths of outer space as well. I never thought that it would bring about a calamity of the world, Feng Xiaotian said with a heavy voice. The power is very powerful. Even with my battle prowess at godhood, I'm not confident that I can defeat it, so I've already worked with the Spirit King and used the powers of the two worlds to deal with it. Jianshin slowly glanced past everyone and said sternly, The hall immediately fell silent. Everyone looked at each other. Many of them found this to be rather dramatic. Originally, they were basically mortal enemies with the world of Forsaken Saints, yet in the blink of an eye, the two worlds were about to work together. They were unable to react to such a drastic change for a moment. However, most of them had fallen silent because of the impending crisis of the world. This was because the Tian-Yuan continent and the world of Forsaken Saints had temporarily turned from enemies to friends, standing on the same side. It was not difficult to imagine just how terrifying the crisis of the world was from this alone. Jianshun, the fur of the winged tiger, hides a great secret. You can use the fur to comprehend Mo Tianyun's way of slaughter. It's a pity that we've already comprehended it for many years, but we still ended up with nothing. Your talent is greater than ours, so if you can comprehend the way of slaughter, you'll have an even greater chance of fending off the evil power, Houston said. At the same time, he mentioned a shocking secret that it was extremely likely that Mo Tianyun was the winged tiger. Big brother, it's with Xiaoling. Xiaoling will give it to you right now. Xiaoling passed the white fur to Jianshun. Jianshun accepted the white fur. As his soul entered the fur, his consciousness was immediately drawn into the world within the fur. He experienced what Houston and the others had experienced. A while later, Jianshun's consciousness slowly withdrew from the world within the white fur. Even though he was rather surprised by what he had experienced, he remained extremely calm. He was surprised that the white fur actually contained the way of slaughter left behind by the greatest human expert of ancient times, Mo Tianyun. He was not surprised that Mo Tianyun was the winged tiger. This was because Jianshun had already understood that there was a secret between Mo Tianyun and the winged tiger. In order to understand Mo Tianyun's past, he had even flipped through large amounts of ancient records in the protector clan of Changyang Prefecture. Afterwards, he vaguely deduced that Mo Tianyun might be the winged tiger from the clues he had gathered. However, he had not been able to confirm it. No wonder Xiaoling suddenly said that I had Mo Tianyun's presence on me when I first came to Mercenary City. However, I had never seen Mo Tianyun, who had disappeared a million years ago. If there's anything special on me, it would be the white fur. This is because the fur has Mo Tianyun's presence on it, which is why Xiaoling misunderstood, Jianshun thought. Now, he really did feel rather fortunate that he had brought the Bai family's legacy beast hide into Mercenary City. It was exactly because of this beast hide that he had met Xiaoling. I once came to Mercenary City after I adopted the white tiger. Back then, Xiaoling said that Mo Tianyun's presence on me had become denser. Now, it looks like this presence is most likely from the white tiger. The white tiger's presence might be extremely similar to Mo Tianyun's, or even completely the same. However, as the white tiger gradually grew up, he learned how to conceal his presence better, so when the white tiger stood before Xiaoling, Xiaoling was unable to sense it at all. Even if she could sense it, it would be impossible for her to think so much with her childlike mind. Through the secrets hidden in the beast hide, Jianshun had become even more certain that Mo Tianyun and the winged tiger were related. However, he also understood that no matter how certain he was, it would never be true as long as there was no proof. Jianshun, will it be difficult for you to comprehend the way of slaughter left behind by Mo Tianyun? Houston stared at Jianshun. As Origin Realm experts, they were basically useless against the crisis of the world. They could only rely on Jianshun. At this critical moment, all of them hoped that Jianshun could become even more powerful. Jianshun carefully folded the beast hide and said with a deep voice, "If you give me time, I'm confident that I can comprehend the way of slaughter. However, the evil power will descend on the Tian-Yuan continent very soon. There's just too little time. It's nowhere near enough." Jianshun sighed inside. He felt extremely helpless. His greatest trump card was the profound sword chi. He believed that once he condensed the first strand of profound sword chi, his battle prowess would be even greater than comprehending the way of slaughter. It was a pity that time was just too tight. It was not enough even if he consumed the comprehension tea. At this moment, violent energy suddenly surged out from the tunnel between the two worlds. The stable tunnel suddenly trembled gently. A figure flickered at the end of the tunnel, hurrying toward the Tian Yuan continent. Oh no, the world of Forsaken Saints has invaded again. What? Those bastards from the world of Forsaken Saints have come again? Oomph. Do they really treat our Tian Yuan continent as their backyard? They've actually invaded time and time again. What's there to be afraid of? Don't forget that our Tian Yuan continent has sovereign Jianshan. Jianshan is no weaker than the Spirit King. We don't need to fear the world of Forsaken Saints anymore. The disturbance in the tunnel was sensed as soon as possible. The cultivators of the four races gathered on the Tian Yuan continent no longer paled in fright like before, as if they were facing the end of the world. Instead, their morale surged, and they showed no fear at all. They radiated with surging battle intent and quickly fell into formation, ready to face the enemy. Very soon, all the people in the tunnel emerged and appeared on the Tian Yuan continent. There were not a lot of them, only around 40. However, every single one of them gave off a terrifying presence. Just by standing there, they could make the world tremble. In the surroundings, the sainthood experts of the four races who had already fallen into formation were all stunned. Their expressions all changed. The several dozen people who had emerged from the tunnel were actually all Origin Realm experts. Quick, report to Sovereign Jianshan. Someone immediately cried out. Chapter 16:14. With Jianshan's appearance, all the sainthood experts from the four races felt confident enough to face off against the several dozen Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints. The crowd began to surge. The sainthood experts who had originally surrounded the Origin Realm experts all arrived behind Jianshan and the others as quickly as they could. They all knew their limits. They knew that they were unable to do much against the Origin Realm experts from the world of Forsaken Saints. Even the shockwaves from the battle between the Origin Realm experts would be enough to heavily injure them. At a time like this, they could only rely on the Origin Realm experts on their side to deal with the Origin Realm experts. Many of the sainthood experts looked forward to the battle between the human sovereigns and the Spirit King in outer space again, because a battle between godhood experts was just too spectacular to them. At the same time, watching a battle at such a high level would be extremely beneficial to their future cultivation. However, to everyone's surprise, whether it was Jianshan, the Spirit King, or all the Origin Realm experts from the two worlds, none of them showed any signs of hostility. It seemed like neither side planned on fighting, which immediately puzzled everyone. At this moment, the Spirit King at the very front stepped forward and appeared before Jianshan, like he had teleported. He directly extended his hand and said, "Give me the God-slaying formation." The protectors and elders of our world have already comprehended the God-slaying formation for quite some time. Our understanding of it is incomparable to the Origin Realm experts of your world. The formation this time will be led by the protectors and elders of our world. All you need to do is assist with the formation with Origin energy. Jianshan did not hesitate. He passed the God-slaying formation to the Spirit King without any hesitation. Although the formation was extremely valuable, all personal benefits were insignificant before the crisis of the world. If they could not survive this crisis, everything would be reduced to nothingness and cease to exist. With that, the war between the Tian Yuan continent and the world of Forsaken Saints ceased. They were temporarily at peace. All the Origin Realm experts of the two worlds were forced to put aside their grievances for now and comprehend the God-slaying formation together, no matter how deep their grievances were. They all understood the severity of the situation. All the sainthood experts of the four races learned about the temporary ceasefire, which immediately led to an uproar. Some people agreed with the decision, while others disagreed. Even though the people who disagreed did not dare to directly voice their opinions, the hidden resentment within them was displayed through their gazes without any reservation. This was because they had friends or family that had died to the hands of the foreign experts, so they were naturally resentful. However, as Jianshan announced the crisis of the world and explained the severity of the matter, the resentful people gradually began to accept this reality. Although the origin realm experts of the two worlds comprehending the god-slaying formation appear to be at peace on the surface, their relationship was not completely harmonious. Many of them were wary of each other, especially the elders and protectors of Jinshan's faction. They had close ties with the elder who had died on the Tianyuan continent. They still held a grudge against the elder's death, so they did not dare to directly find trouble with Jinshan. Instead, they placed all their resentment on the other origin realm experts of the Tianyuan continent. Although they did not dare to do anything out of line due to the Spirit King's strict orders, they would always use the time when the two sides were comprehending the god-slaying formation to make things difficult for them and mock the origin realm experts of the Tianyuan continent. We've only joined hands with your world of Forsaken Saints because of the crisis of the world. It's not because we're afraid of you. If you continue to act recklessly, don't blame me for ignoring the temporary peace treaty between the two worlds and acting mercilessly. Shangwanmu walked over from afar. Her voice was very cold, filled with chilling, killing intent. She warned all the origin realm experts of the world of Forsaken Saints. She did not take part in the demonstration of the god-slaying formation. She was skilled in the way of the zither, which was extremely effective against the soul. She might be able to unleash an even greater advantage with the assistance of music. Back in the world of Forsaken Saints, Shangwanmu had managed to hold her ground against several dozen origin realm experts all by herself. That battle had established Shangwanmu's reputation. All the protectors and elders from the world of Forsaken Saints shrank back when she spoke. Fear appeared in their eyes, and the expressions of the people who were making things difficult for the origin realm experts of the Tianyuan continent all changed. They became as frightened as cicadas in winter. They immediately shut their mouths, not daring to say another word. The origin realm experts from the Tianyuan continent immediately became surprised when they saw this. Their gazes toward Shangwanmu all changed. At the same time, the cultivators from the Holy Emperor from the world of Forsaken Saints constantly flew out from the tunnel between the two worlds. All of them concealed their presences and appeared on the Tianyuan continent, quickly forming powerful formations. Soon afterwards, the sainthood experts of the Tianyuan continent began to move under Jinshan's orders. They all formed formations in the sky and drew the ancestral artifacts of the protector clans. Whether it was the Tianyuan continent's world or the world of Forsaken Saints' world, they used all their power to resist the impending crisis. Although the sainthood experts' formations would only be glowing and would not be of much use, they had no other choice. Even if they were as weak as ants, they could not give up. The supreme divine hall of Mercenary City hovered high in the sky. It was prepared to take part in any battle. However, the divine hall was a defensive type, and resisting the crisis of the world did not require defense. Instead, it required active attacks, eliminating the source of the crisis. As a result, the divine hall did not receive much attention in the upcoming battle. This was because just defending was not enough. Even using the divine hall for defense would require an extremely tremendous amount of power, so it was better to use the power to fend off the crisis. In just half a day, the sainthood experts of the two worlds had made all their preparations. They stood in countless formations in outer space as several dozen origin realm experts controlled the god-slaying formation. They formed a tough line of defense. Jinshan and the Spirit King sat in outer space as well. They were at the very front and had adjusted themselves to their peak condition. They were ready for a bloody battle. Jinshan held the golden armor woven from the primordial god Silk in his left hand. He looked at the primordial god Silk and sank into his thoughts. He knew that the primordial god Silk was specially created to fend off the crisis of the world. Now that the source of the crisis had appeared, the primordial god Silk did not react at all. Chapter 16:15. The primordial god Silk was extremely mysterious. When Jinshan had first obtained it, it could only block the attacks of saint rulers. Once it faced an attack from a holy emperor, the primordial god Silk was basically useless. Although the holy emperor's attacks were nowhere near enough to damage the primordial god Silk, The primordial god Silk was unable to absorb such a great force. Even if the primordial god Silk was worn on the body would have to endure the backlash. Those who were weaker would be blown to pieces by the backlash. However, the primordial god Silk remained the same in Jinshin's hands as when he had first obtained it. It could only block the attacks of saint rulers, but it was so tough that even with his battle prowess at godhood, he was unable to damage the primordial god Silk at all. The tremendous amount of Xianhuang Qi it had absorbed in the Xianhuang microcosm seemed to have completely settled down. It did not show up at all. Primordial god Silk, O primordial god Silk, the crisis of the world has already appeared, so why don't you display your might? You were born just to deal with the crisis. Jianshun murmured as he stared at the primordial god Silk in his hand. He began to secretly panic when he sensed the evil power rapidly approach him. Jianshun had studied the primordial god Silk for a very long time in the space where the Yin-Yang Saint Rock resided. Unfortunately, he came up with nothing in the end. He had asked the sword spirits about it, but even they had no idea how the primordial god Silk could display its might. This was because although they had seen powerful treasures forged from the primordial god Silk a few times in the immortals' world, they were not controlled by the first master of the primordial god Silk. Instead, they had obtained them through various methods, including killing and robbing. As a result, they naturally had no idea how the primordial god Silk could block the crisis of the world. A terrifying pressure shook up outer space, causing the stars to dim. The evil power approached the Tianyuan continent at an unbelievable speed. It had only taken a day for it to travel from the depths of outer space to the planet where the Tianyuan continent resided. At this moment, Jianshun and the Spirit King could clearly see the demonic red light in the distance. As the evil power approached, the red light expanded at an unbelievable rate. In just a few seconds, it seemed to have turned into a sun, shining with dazzling red light. It illuminated the entire region of outer space, dyeing it blood red. He food, my food, all my food. I'll devour you and become even more powerful. An extremely powerful mental pulse radiated from the red light, sweeping through the entire region of outer space. Not only did Jianshun and the Spirit King sense it, but everyone on the Tianyuan continent, the Beast God continent, the Sea Realm, and the Wasteland continent sensed the mental pulse. Immediately, the expressions of the hundreds of millions of cultivators on the four races changed drastically. Their faces paled at that moment. At the same time, hundreds of millions of cultivators on the four races continent all vomited blood. Their eyes became bloodshot, and some of the weaker ones even bled from all their orifices. They seemed vicious and terrifying. As for the mortals who were unable to cultivate in the four races continents, their heads all tilted to the side and they fainted. There were even a few whose heads exploded. At that moment, the four races continent descended into panic. It was unknown how many billions of mortals had fainted, but at the same time, it was unknown how many billions of cultivators had been injured. In outer space, all the saints of the two worlds who had formed the formation became extremely solemn. Although they were not injured, they felt like their heads were about to explode. The mental ripples were like steel nails, drilling into their souls, causing them great pain. The several dozen Origin Realm experts from the two worlds all revealed extremely ugly expressions. What had happened on the Tianyuan continent could not escape their senses. Just a mental pulse from the evil power had caused such great destruction, which shocked all of them. The power of the evil power had completely exceeded their imaginations. Can Jianshun and the Spirit King destroy the evil power? At that moment, the Origin Realm experts from the two worlds all thought of the same thing. Although they had not directly clashed, they had already witnessed the terror of the evil power. They began to doubt whether Jianshun and the Spirit King could destroy the calamity, because the calamity was far more terrifying than Jianshun and the Spirit King, no matter how they looked at it. However, even though they felt like their chances were slim, they did not shrink back at all because they had no path of retreat. Their only hope was to face the calamity head-on and fight for a chance at survival. Jianshun and the Spirit King stood up as well. They stared ahead sternly before moving at the same time. They turned into swords and radiated with shocking sword intent, charging toward the evil power with lightning-like speed. The moment the evil power reappeared, Fairy Haoyue struggled in the bright moon divine hall. She murmured to herself, "There's less than a 10% chance of this world surviving the calamity. With Jianshan and the Spirit King's strength, they'll only be able to keep the evil spirit busy for a while at most, but it'll only be for a very short period of time. Once the two of them die, the evil spirit won't be able to keep them busy anymore, so it'll attack all the living beings on the planet. I won't be able to avoid it in my current state either. Do I still have to use that forbidden technique to escape in the end?" Fairy Haoyue hesitated. Although using the forbidden technique could allow her to avoid the evil spirit's threat and even allow her to return to the Saint's world, the price was just too heavy. It was so heavy that she would rather abandon her body and live on as a soul for over 100,000 years than use the forbidden technique. "I'm too weak right now. I don't have a body, nor do I have moonlight force. If I use the forbidden technique in my current state, I'll probably end up dead, even if I manage to escape." Fairy Haoyue sighed gently. Her face was filled with helplessness. At this moment, she did not consider her disciple, Yu Yu. She had accepted Yu Yu as her disciple because she could see Jianshan's potential. She wanted to use her connection with Jianshan so that when Jianshan went to the Saint's world in the future, she would be able to leave with the smallest price. She could even leave effortlessly. However, she had never thought that the Saint's world would face a crisis of life and death at this moment, which disrupted her plans. With the invasion of the evil spirit, the laws of the world were disrupted, so the gate to the Saint's world could not be opened normally. Even if she was willing to pay a certain price and control the bright moon divine hall to go to the Saint's world alone, she would not be able to do it. In outer space, Jianshan wielded the Ziying sword as he was enveloped by a layer of intense violet light. He charged into the red light like a violet comet. Beside him, the Spirit King wielded the Cloud Stream sword. He seemed to have become a huge sword as he entered the red light with Jianshan. They used their full strength to fend off the evil power. When the two of them charged into the red light, a blurry figure appeared in the center. It radiated with an extremely cold, evil presence. With a strange laugh, the blurry figure that seemed to be condensed from mist slowly raised its hand toward Jianshan and the Spirit King. The moment it raised its hand, endless blood-red mist surged out, enveloping the two of them. Chapter 16:16. The red mist was extremely evil. It was filled with a chilling, baleful presence. Jianshan and the Spirit King immediately felt a bone-chilling coldness invade their bodies as they were enveloped by the mist. It passed through their protective light and approached their skin, invading their bodies. Wherever the mist passed by, their blood would stop flowing and their vitality would freeze. Even their limbs and bones would become tough. At that moment, the two of them felt their bodies become stiff and their movements slow. Their strength as godhood was actually so weak before the cold presence. But soon, their expressions changed once more. They both sensed that the chilling aura was actually devouring the life force in their bodies. At the same time, their vital energies were also being devoured. As their vitality were devoured, they felt a sense of weakness, causing Jianshan and the Spirit King's hearts to suddenly sink. They knew that the evil power was extremely powerful and that they would struggle to fend it off even if they worked together. However, they had never thought that it would be so terrifying where they would end up in such a horrible state as soon as they came into contact with it. Suddenly, Jianshan bellowed out at the sky. The 8th layer of chaotic force surged out from his chaotic Niden as he used all his strength to fend off the cold presence that had invaded his body. At the same time, the azulate swords shone brightly like two scorching suns. The Qing Suo sword swelled with the wind, becoming 3,000 meters long in a single instance. Under the control of Jianshan's soul, it turned into a resplendent streak of light, charging toward the red mist with an unstoppable force. The Qing Suo sword's attack was devastating, but when it landed on the thin layer of red mist, It only made the mist ripple a few times before stabilizing. Not only did the attack fail to pierce through the layer of red mist that trapped Jianshun, but it did not even cause much damage to the mist. Jianshun's eyes suddenly narrowed when he saw this. He lowered his head and glanced at the primordial god Silk in his left hand. Determination filled his eyes as he gripped the Ziying sword. His presence skyrocketed as he called out, "Daluo sword." With that, a golden sword chi rapidly condensed. The sword chi possessed extremely terrifying power. As soon as it condensed, just the terrifying pressure it gave off caused the surrounding space to collapse. Afterward, with a flash of golden light, the sword chi shot out with lightning speed. It moved extremely quickly, as if it had broken through space. It appeared before the red mist in a single instance and viciously collided with it. Boom! The two collided and erupted with a boom. The golden sword chi immediately dispersed, turning into a terrifying force that attempted to rip through the red mist. However, the red mist was unimaginably powerful as well. Although it churned violently after taking on the attack, it showed no signs of shattering. Jianshun's eyes were cold as he stared at the churning red mist. He formed a seal with his hand and used the Daluo sword again. Immediately, a second strand of golden sword chi condensed before his chest, colliding with the red mist with the power of lightning. The two attacks possessed the battle prowess of godhood experts. Finally, a 3-meter-long hole appeared in the red mist after taking on the two attacks from Jianshun's Daluo sword. Jianshun immediately charged out. At the same time, a rumble rang out nearby. The Spirit King broke free from the red mist as well, basically charging out at the same time as Jianshun. Yeah, you guys were actually able to come out. I've underestimated you guys. But it doesn't matter because the end result will be the same. Food will always be food. Hee hee. The blood-red figure was floating not far away. The demonic red light radiating from his body illuminated the starry sky, turning it blood-red. Essence chi constantly gathered from all directions in the void. He was devouring the essence of this part of the universe. Moreover, the vitality of some of the stars around him was constantly turning into strands of energy and fusing with the blood-red figure. After losing the vitality, the stars withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was not the stars themselves that were withering, but all the life on those stars. In the end, those stars gradually turned into a dead gray color. Jianshun and the Spirit King shivered inside when they saw the evil spirit's ability to devour the vitality of planets. At that moment, they both made up their minds to prevent the evil spirit from approaching the Tianyuan continent. Otherwise, not only would the Tianyuan continent become a dead planet, even the world of Forsaken Saints would not be spared. Tai sword technique, Jianshun called out. He fused with his sword as his soul fused with his sword. At that moment, he seemed to have become a supreme sword. He radiated with a surging might, enough to obliterate space and make the stars tremble. He shot toward the evil spirit with a resplendent light that was as bright as the sun. Form breaker. At the same time, the Spirit King's dark sword erupted with extremely dense origin energy. He used a sword technique that specialized in destroying all tangible objects as he charged toward the evil spirit with Jianshun. The evil spirit only raised his hand in a simple manner against their attacks. The moment he raised his hand, it suddenly turned into a huge, blood-red palm. Although it was condensed from mist and should have been illusory, it actually became solid at that moment. It directly slammed toward Jianshun and the Spirit King. Boom! Boom! Jianshun and the Spirit King collided with the blood-red palm, immediately erupting with two heavy booms. Whether it was Jianshun or the Spirit King, they both felt like their attacks had struck an extremely tough boulder. They felt a powerful backlash. Not only did their attacks fail to harm the palm at all, but they even viciously struck the two of them as the palm slammed toward them. The two of them immediately vomited blood as they were blown away in horrible shapes. At the same time, a strand of evil energy entered their bodies the moment they came in contact with the blood-red palm, wildly devouring their vital energies. At the same time, A strand of evil energy came in contact with the primordial god silk in Jinshin's left hand. It immediately fused with Jinshin, as if it had invaded the primordial god silk. Chapter 16-17. As Jinshin flew back, a series of cracking sounds rang out from various parts of his body. These were the sounds of his bones. With a few crisp sounds, a few of his bones immediately shattered. An evil presence existed within his body, devouring his vital energies and life force, causing Jinshin's presence to rapidly weaken. The evil presence was extremely powerful. Even his 8th layer chaotic force struggled to stop it. The Spirit King was heavily injured, just like Jinshin. He was covered in blood, and many of his bones had shattered. His life force and vital energies were constantly being devoured by the evil presence, causing his presence to rapidly weaken as well. Just what level has this evil power reached? It's actually so powerful. How are we supposed to fend it off? The Spirit King was shocked. He could clearly sense the evil spirit's strength through this clash. It was an undefeatable existence. Its strength had completely surpassed deity, or it would have never been able to heavily injure him and Jinshin so easily. Jinshin was also filled with despair. He had never underestimated the evil spirit, but only when he truly clashed with it did he understand just how powerful it was. Even if he condensed his profound sword chi, he probably would not be the opponent of such a terrifying evil spirit. At this moment, a dazzling, golden light appeared before Jinshin's eyes. His eyes immediately narrowed, and he immediately looked at the primordial god silk in his left hand. Only now did he discover, to his surprise and joy, that the power hidden within the primordial god silk had begun to awaken. The awakening of the primordial god silk immediately reignited the flames of hope in Jinshin's heart that had sunk into despair. At the same time, strands of power leaked out from the primordial god silk, circulating through Jinshin's body. Wherever the power passed by, the evil presence in his body would immediately disperse. The power might not have been particularly powerful, nor was it particularly aggressive, but it just happened to be the bane of the evil presence. This was because the primordial god silk was born for the calamity of the world. Its mission was to fend off the calamity of the world. As the evil presence dispersed, Jinshin immediately felt his body lighten. His gradually weakened presence gradually strengthened as well. However, the vital energies and vitality that had been sucked away earlier seemed to have vanished, leaving nothing behind. Jinshin felt his body weaken, as if he had run out of energy. I understand now. The primordial god silk needs to be stimulated by the evil power for the power hidden within to awaken. Jinshin's eyes lit up. Without any hesitation, he immediately used the origin energy of a Class 9 Radiant Saint Master to heal before quickly arriving before the Spirit King. He directly pressed the primordial god silk against the Spirit King, allowing the power to disperse the evil presence within the Spirit King body. What is this treasure? Why does it have such wondrous effects? The Spirit King immediately became surprised when he sensed the evil presence within him vanish. He stared at the glowing primordial god silk in a daze. This is a saint artifact for fending off the calamity. Whether we can survive this calamity will all depend on it. Shunjian, stay here. I'll use this to fend it off. Jinshin gave a simple explanation before gripping the primordial god silk tightly with his left hand. He formed a seal with his right hand and used the linear lightning release. He shot toward the evil spirit as a bolt of lightning with unbelievable speed. As it rapidly drew closer to the evil spirit, the golden light from the primordial god silk became more and more dazzling and resplendent. There were also strands of desolate yellow light mixed within it. It was the Xianhuang Qi that the primordial god silk had absorbed in the Xianhuang microcosm. What a disgusting presence. I hate this presence. Food, go die. The evil spirit sent out a mental pulse with a sliver of irritation. The presence from the primordial god silk made it feel uneasy and threatened. It subconsciously wanted to avoid the primordial god silk. However, the evil spirit was quite intelligent. In its eyes, both Jianshan and the Spirit King were only food. It would never allow itself, an expert, to be scared away by food. Its body immediately disintegrated, turning into a surging sea of blood. It blotted out the sky and formed a huge net that enveloped Jianshan. This time, it directly used all of its power. Not only did it want to devour Jianshan, but it also wanted to devour the primordial god silk that threatened it. In a single moment, Jianshan entered the world of blood. He held the primordial god silk as lightning flickered around him. He shot through the world of blood as a bolt of lightning, crossing several 100,000 kilometers in a single instance. He moved with unbelievable speed. Wherever he went, the sea of blood in the surroundings would vanish as if it had evaporated. In the end, a long tunnel was formed behind him. Of course, the disappearance of the sea of blood had nothing to do with his own strength. It was all because of the primordial god silk. The primordial god silk had absorbed the sea of blood that had vanished. However, the sea of blood seemed to be endless. Jianshan shot through the sea of blood with lightning-like speed, crossing several 100,000 kilometers in a single instance. Even when he used the linear lightning release and stopped, he still failed to escape from the sea of blood. What is this? It's actually devouring my power. At this moment, the evil spirit's mental pulse rang out in Jianshan's head. Its voice was filled with anger. I am the ruler of devouring. There's nothing in the universe that I can't devour. Everything is my food, yet you dare to devour my power. Let's see just who will devour who in the end. The evil spirit roared. The evil spirit bellowed out. As it bellowed out, the world of blood began to churn. At that moment, the entire sea of blood had turned into a huge whirlpool that rapidly revolved. Jianshan just happened to be in the center of the whirlpool. As soon as the whirlpool formed, Jianshan felt his life force and vitality drain away at an unbelievable rate. In a single instance, he had lost over a tenth of his life force, vitality, and vitality. The feeling of weakness became even more intense, and his black hair began to turn gray. Jianshan was shocked. The evil power was devouring him far too quickly. With his current strength, he was unable to resist the devouring power at all. All he could do was await his fate like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. He could last under a minute or so at most before he lost all of his life force and died. As if the primordial god silk had been greatly stimulated, the power within it completely awakened. It shone with dazzling, golden light. The golden light was the bane of the evil spirit. Even though the evil spirit was extremely powerful, it was unable to do anything to the golden light. Jianshan's entire body was enveloped by the golden light as well. As soon as he entered the golden light, he seemed to be in another world, completely isolated from the outside world. The devouring power of the evil spirit could no longer affect him at all. The primordial god silk that had been woven into the golden armor began to disintegrate on its own. It turned into a long, golden thread that pierced into the depths of the sea of blood. The golden light was dazzling and resplendent. The power that had lain dormant for so many years had completely awakened. The sea of blood immediately began to churn violently. The furious roars of the evil spirit continued to be transmitted through the waves of thought. This hateful presence is actually suppressing me. God damn it. If it weren't for the fact that a bastard wasted so much of my power, this hateful presence wouldn't be able to harm me at all, even if it suppresses me. The evil spirit roared. The evil spirit roared angrily. As it roared, the sea of blood began to shrink rapidly. The shrinking did not seem to be under the evil spirit's control. It continued to struggle as it churned. Occasionally, strands of golden light would flash through the sea of blood. Chapter 16:18. The monstrous sea of blood rapidly shrank as it churned violently. During this period, a dazzling golden light flashed from time to time. One could faintly see golden threads drilling in and out of the sea of blood like maggots and tarsal bones. The shrinking of the sea of blood did not seem to be what it wanted, so it struggled violently as it shrank. However, no matter how it struggled or resisted, it was useless in the end. At the same time, the sea of blood stopped absorbing the essence of the universe at that moment. It was as if this ability had been suppressed with the complete awakening of the primordial Godsilk's power. In the end, the sea of blood condensed back into the figure that the evil spirit had first appeared before Jianshun and the Spirit King. It was 10 meters tall and completely blood-red. It possessed the characteristics of a human, except its face was blurry and lacked facial features. The primordial god silk had turned into a long, golden thread around the blood-red figure. It shone with a dazzling light as it bound the blood-red figure like a dumpling. Under the illumination of the primordial god silk, the blood-red figure immediately began to hiss. The red mist gradually vanished at a visible rate. The power of the primordial god silk was extremely effective against evil spirits. It could be said that the power of the primordial god silk was born to destroy the evil spirit. So with the appearance of the primordial god silk, the evil spirit that was so powerful that even Jianshun and the Spirit King would not be able to defeat it in a single strike was immediately suppressed. Jianshun hovered nearby as a layer of powerful radiant saint force enveloped him. As he healed, he stared at the primordial god silk that bound the evil spirit with hope. He immediately saw the light of victory when he saw how the powerful evil spirit could not even withstand a single strike from the primordial god silk. The Spirit King flew over from afar as well. He also ingested a pill to heal himself. He sternly stared at the golden thread that bound the evil spirit and growled, "I never thought that you would possess such a powerful treasure. Can this treasure destroy it?" This is a saint artifact that specifically counters the crisis of the world. It doesn't matter if it can destroy the evil power or not. It's the only thing we can rely on right now. Jianshun growled. Originally, they had the god-slaying formation, but after witnessing the evil spirit's strength, he understood that unless the formation could erupt with a power that could kill gods, it would be useless. However, making the god-slaying formation erupt with such great power required an extremely high level of strength. Just the several dozen Origin Realm experts from the two worlds were nowhere near enough. The reason why the 3 supreme treasures of the world of Forsaken Saints were called supreme treasures was because they could be used to deal with Origin Realm experts. Origin Realm experts were the peak of power in the world. Every single one of them was a sovereign, so treasures that could deal with experts like that were worthy of being called supreme treasures. However, using the 3 supreme treasures against the evil spirit would be like throwing an egg at a rock. At this moment, a frightening power suddenly appeared, causing the outer space to tremble. All the stars in the sky dimmed. The evil spirit began to resist as hard as it could under the primordial god silk. It began to rapidly swell under the restraints of the primordial god silk. In the blink of an eye, it had become a blood-red giant that was several thousand meters tall. As the evil spirit swelled, the primordial god silk became taut as well. It flickered with a bright, golden light. It enveloped the evil spirit like a huge net, firmly trapping it there. As soon as the golden light came in contact with the evil spirit's power, it was like a flame encountering mist. The evil spirit's power actually began to disperse. At the same time, the evil spirit's ability to devour all the life in the outside world completely vanished under the restraints of the primordial god silk. Shunjian, let's use our full strength and attack it together. We need to weaken it so that the primordial god silk doesn't break, Jianshun said sternly. He immediately struck out with the Spirit King, attacking the evil spirit as hard as he could against the primordial god silk. The evil spirit's original body was trapped by the primordial god silk, so it was like a sitting duck right now. It was unable to fight back at all against the full-powered attacks of Jianshun and the Spirit King. A will that splits the heavens, sword shakes, stars shatter. The Spirit King bellowed out. He stabbed the sword in his hand into the evil spirit through a gap in the primordial god silk. With a violent shake of the sword, visible ripples immediately expanded. These ripples contained an extremely terrifying power, enough to destroy stars. As the ripples spread out, the illusory figure of the evil spirit that seemed to be condensed from the blood mist immediately churned. Wherever the ripples passed, the surrounding blood mist would begin to fade. Tai's sword technique. At the same time, Jianshin struck out as well. He did not hold back at all, stabbing the evil spirit with his full strength. If the evil spirit were not restrained by the primordial god Silk, Jianshin and the Spirit King would not have been able to harm it at all, even if they used their full strength. However, now that it was restrained by a power that specialized in restraining it, it was unable to use its strength at all. As a result, it suffered from the attacks from the two of them. However, the actions of the two of them had completely infuriated the evil spirit. Immediately, waves after waves of wild and violent mental fluctuations spread out and swept across the starry sky, stirring up layers of ripples in the starry sky. The evil spirit swelled even more as an even more terrifying power secretly brewed. It planned on snapping the primordial god Silk in a single stroke. The primordial god Silk shone with dazzling light. It had become taut. Even though it did its best to restrain the evil spirit, it gradually lost the upper hand in the end as the evil spirit's strength rapidly increased. The primordial god Silk is still ownerless. Once the power hidden within it completely awakens, you can refine it. That's the best opportunity. Master, hurry up and refine the primordial god Silk, and then control its power to fend off the calamity. The calamity this time has been affected by the Yin-Yang Saint Rock. Its strength has exceeded expectations. The sword spirit's voices suddenly rang out in Jinshin's head.